Good morning, everyone. Am I audible and visible? Good morning, Nikhil. Am I audible and visible? Good morning, everyone. Audible and visible? Shravanti, good morning. Nikhil, let some more people join in and then I'll begin. Suman, good morning. Sridhara. Am I audible and visible? Ankur, thank you, Ankur. Good morning. Rajkumar, Prince. Good morning, all of you. Ankur, Lakshmi. Right. Today, I hope to finish with ancient Indian history. Let us see. We have a long day to go. Yesterday, I finished with the Vedic period and the pre-Maurya period, and I gave you an introduction to Mauryan Empire. All of you, am I audible and visible once again? All clear? Can I begin? Yes. Okay. So the Mauryas succeeded. You have the pre-Maurya period, the rise of Magadha among the 16 states. Magadha became the most powerful. Some of the early dynasties which ruled Magadha were the Haryanka dynasty, the Shishunaga dynasty, and then the Nandas. The Nandas were succeeded by the Mauryas. I told you the various reasons as to why the Mauryan Empire became the most powerful kingdom in around that time when compared to the other 15. So, what are the various reasons for the rise of Magadha? Now, let us discuss this interesting chapter, Mauryan Empire. So the Mauryas were the first pan-India rulers of India. They ruled almost the whole of India from parts of Afghanistan, as you can see on your map on the screen in front of you. They ruled almost the whole of India from parts of Afghanistan to the river Kaveri. So this was the first pan-India empire. First pan-India empire was that of the Mauryas. First pan-India empire. And even the deep south meaning where you have the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, this is called the deep south. Even the deep south acknowledged the supremacy of the Mauryas. They paid tribute to the Mauryas and they accepted the overlordship of the Mauryas. So we have the first three Mauryas who expanded the Mauryan Empire, a kingdom into an empire. Chandragupta Maurya conquered everything from parts of Afghanistan to the Vindhyas. His son Bindusar conquered South India, and Ashoka conquered Kalinga, so thus completing the conquest of almost the whole of India. So let us look at this chapter, interesting chapter, introduction, origin of of the Mauryas, who these Mauryas were. We will talk about the origin of the Mauryas, few opinions as regards who could have been these Mauryas, sources for the study of Mauryas. Yesterday, I told you that real Indian history, proper Indian history begins from the Mauryan Empire onwards because we have a number of sources, reliable sources, both literary sources as well as archaeological sources for the study of the Mauryas. So we have a number of sources, and therefore, proper Indian history is said to begin from the Mauryan Empire onwards. Foreign accounts, indigenous literature, the edicts of Ashoka, that is the royal messages of Ashoka, which he got inscribed on pillars, caves, the walls of caves and rocks or rock boulders. So these are called the edicts or royal messages. They also serve as a source of information, a reliable source of information for the study of the Mauryas. We have other inscriptions also which give information about the Mauryas. We'll discuss about them. So then we come to the political history, Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara, Ashoka. These are the first three Mauryas, the great Mauryas. And after Ashoka, we have weak successors. They are called later Mauryas. They were not able to hold the Mauryan Empire together, and therefore the Mauryan Empire collapsed like a pack of cards. Then we'll discuss about Mauryan administration, the various divisions of the empire, administrative divisions, central administration, the account of Megasthenes, society, economy of the Mauryas. Art and architecture will be covered as part of art and culture. So I'll not be discussing art and architecture of the Mauryas. We will discuss this as part of art and architecture when we start the culture classes. Then decline of the Mauryas, various theories as regards the decline of the Mauryas and questions which have appeared from this particular chapter in the UPSC. We'll talk about it, right? Um, yeah, I'll give you pointers, Shravanti. Definitely, I'll give you pointers. Don't worry. So here, let's talk about the Mauryas. So as I told you, the Mauryas were the first pan-India rulers of this country. They ruled almost the whole of India. They established a pan-India empire, stretching from parts of Afghanistan to the river Kaveri. They ruled for only 137 years, as you can see, 90 plus 47. 90 years, you have the rule of the first three Mauryas. That is Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusar, and Ashoka. They ruled for 90 years. And then we have the later Mauryas who ruled for 47 years. Later Mauryas who ruled for 47 years. So totally the Mauryan Empire lasted for only 137 years. It lasted for only 137 years. Real Indian history is said to begin from the Mauryan Empire onwards. We have a number of sources for the study of the Mauryas. So real Indian history is said to begin from the Mauryas onwards. So we have edicts of Ashoka. They are found throughout the length and breadth of this country, from parts of wherever these edicts are found. We come to know the extent of the Mauryan Empire. Except Tamil Nadu and Kerala, edicts are found throughout this country, and from that we can come to know the extent of the Mauryan Empire, right? So we'll discuss the edicts of Ashoka in some time. The second and the 13th major rock edict of Ashoka talk about the southern contemporaries of the Mauryas, the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas. It also mentions Sri Lanka as Tamraparni. So the second and the 13th major rock edict of Ashoka. So what is this major rock edict, minor rock edict, etc.? We will discuss that in detail. So it talks about the southern contemporaries of the Mauryas in the deep south. And Kalhana, who wrote the history of Kashmir in this book called Raja Tarangini, tells us that Srinagar was built by or founded by Ashoka. Ashoka was the one who built the city of Srinagar in Kashmir. So they ruled from Kashmir to Kaveri and present day Afghanistan to Bangladesh. So they ruled a huge portion of this country, the Mauryas. So let us talk about the origin of the Mauryas. Who are these Mauryas? What are the various theories as regards the background of the Mauryas? Now we have Brahmanical sources such as the Puranas. Puranas describe the Mauryas, or rather criticize the Mauryas as Shudras and unrighteous. So they criticize the Mauryas as Shudras and unrighteous. What is the meaning of unrighteous? That is, they did not rule according to Dharma. They were uh, wicked rulers, or they did not rule by dharma according to righteousness. Um, Historians have questioned this, and they have come to the conclusion that this is not true. And we need to understand why historians don't agree to this opinion of the Puranas. Puranas describe the Mauryas as Shudras and unrighteous. Now, why don't historians believe this opinion of the Puranas? Simply because, you see, we have the first three Mauryas, Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusar, and Ashoka. They were all supporters of heterodox sects. They were supporters of heterodox. Heterodox means which oppose the existing belief systems. So, Chandragupta Maurya, what was the existing belief system? The Vedic religion was the existing belief system. Chandragupta Maurya patronized Jainism, right? Then Bindusara patronized the Ajivika sect, a sect called the Ajivikas. When I come to Jainism, I'll talk about Ajivikas philosophy. So we'll talk about Ajivikas. And then Ashoka patronized Buddhism. So none of the great Mauryas patronized the Vedic religion. In fact, they supported the heterodox sects, and therefore, under the great Mauryas, the Vedic religion did not get any royal patronage, so royal support, backup, and therefore, the Puranas, which have been written by Brahmanas, criticize the Mauryas as Shudras and unrighteous. Do you understand what I just now told? Can you raise your hand? Did you understand what I just now said? Therefore, historians don't agree to this opinion given by the Puranas. Right? Clear? Okay, fine. Then we have Justine. So Justine, a Greek writer called Justine, he says that Chandragupta Maurya. So I have used a shortcut here, CGM in short, Chandragupta Maurya. So Chandragupta Maurya, CGM stands for Chandragupta Maurya. So don't think otherwise. Chandragupta Maurya. He says that Chandragupta Maurya belonged to a humble origin. He came from a humble background. Though Justine doesn't talk about the Varna of Chandragupta Maurya, he says that he came from a simple background, humble background. Then we have the Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman. So we have the first pure inscription in Sanskrit language issued by a Shaka king. His name was Rudradaman. So the Junagadh rock inscription. We'll talk about this in some time when I do the post-Maurya period. Junagadh rock inscription. So you see, you have foreigners coming into India in the post-Maurya period. The Bactrian Greeks or Indo-Greeks. Then we have the Scythians and the Shakas, the Parthians and the Kushanas. So four foreigners came in this sequence. The Indo-Greeks or the Bactrian Greeks, the Shakas or Scythians, the Parthians and the Kushanas. One of the branch of the Shakas was the Kardamaka branch of the Shakas. Kardamaka branch of the Shakas. And the greatest of the Kardamaka branch of the Shakas, who ruled Western India, parts of Western India, was Rudradaman. He issued an inscription called the Junagadh rock inscription. Junagadh is a place in Gujarat, also called Girnar. So it's another name for Junagadh is Girnar. So he issues an inscription in 150 AD. It is dated 150 AD. And this inscription, we have the history of the Sudarshana Lake. That is, who built this Sudarshana Lake and who all repaired it. So that is the main aspect about the Junagadh rock inscription issued by Rudradaman, Shaka king Rudradaman, dated Rudradaman the first. And in this Junagadh rock inscription, Mauryas are said to be of Vaishya origin. He says Mauryas were of Vaishya origin, Rudradaman. Then we have the Buddhist books. Buddhist books, they elevate the social position of the Mauryas. They say that the place where the Mauryas came from was full of more or peacocks. So in Pali and Hindi, more means peacock, right? And I believe the Mauryas were peacock tamers. They used to tame peacocks, right? And the word Maurya is derived from the word Moria because they were peacock tamers. So the word Maurya is from the word Moria, and they link the Mauryas with the Sakya Kshatriya clan of Kapilavastu, to which Buddha belonged. Buddha belonged to the Sakya clan. So he was a Kshatriya prince, but belonging to the Sakya clan of the Kshatriyas. So they link the Mauryas with the Sakya clan of the Buddha, stating that they were related to the Sakya clan of the Buddha, the Mauryas. So the Buddhist books elevate or uplift the social position of the Mauryas. Are you there? Did you understand till now whatever I've done? Can I move on? Puranas, what is the opinion of Justin? Junagadh rock inscription says that the Mauryas were of Vaishya origin. Buddhist works, the Buddhist books, uplift the social position of the Mauryas, and they connect the Mauryas with the Sakya Kshatriya clan of Kapilavastu of the Buddha, and they say that the Mauryas were peacock tamers, and the word Maurya is from the word Moria, right? Then we have another theory which says that the word Maurya is from the word Mura. Understand this. The word Maurya is from the word Mura. Now, who is this Mura? I believe who was the last Nanda ruler, Dhanananda. So, during the time of Dhanananda, remember Dhanananda, the last Nanda ruler during whose period Alexander came to India. So, this Dhanananda had a concubine. Her name was Mura. So, Dhanananda had a concubine or a keep. a Dasi woman. So Mura was a Dasi or a slave girl of Dhanananda. In ancient Indian law, according to ancient Indian law, if a Dasi girl, that is, if a slave girl gave birth to a son, to her master, that way she can win her freedom back. She can regain her freedom if she gives birth to a son. So through Dhanananda, this girl called Mura gave birth to a son, and that way she got her freedom back. And the word Maurya is from the word Mura. So Chandragupta Maurya, Chandragupta was called this boy who was born to Mura was called Chandragupta, and the word Maurya is from the word Mura. This is another suggestion, another opinion as regards the origin of the word Maurya. So probably Justin is very uh, correct in many states that Chandragupta Maurya belonged to a humble origin, but to which Varna he belonged to, he doesn't mention. Right? And ultimately, how do we conclude this? Who are the Mauryas? We can say that the Mauryas probably were of a humble origin, but to which caste or which Varna um, Chandragupta belonged, we don't know. So he came from a humble background. This is about the origin of the Mauryas. Are you there with me? You see, in ancient India, if a Dasi woman gave birth to a son, to her master, she not only won her freedom back, but that boy, that son who's born to that slave woman, has a right to the parental property, the property of his father, who has sired him, right? So, along with the other legal heirs of that particular father, this slave boy born to the slave girl also has a right over the father's property, has equal rights along with the other legal heirs of the father. So, this is the origin of the Mauryas according to various scholars. Humble is simple origin, it's like, came from a very simple background, very poor and humble background, right? He was not from an aristocratic family, right? That is what is the meaning of humble. Suman. Now let us look at the sources for the study of the Mauryas. Sources for the study of the Mauryas. Various sources. We have foreign accounts, then indigenous literature, edicts of Ashoka. Now, among the foreign accounts, we have a number of Greek and Roman writers, Sinhalese, Sri Lankan, Tibetan, Chinese accounts also, which give us a lot of information about the Mauryas. So let us talk about the various sources for the study of the Mauryas. Nearchus. Now, somewhere it might strike a chord in your mind. I have mentioned about Nearchus earlier. When I did Alexander, you remember, Alexander divided his army into two parts, and he sent a part of his army under Nearchus through the sea route. So this is this person called Nearchus. So Nearchus tells us that Dharmashastras in India, so he was a commander, a military general of Alexander. Dharmashastras were not written and passed on orally. He says Dharmashastras were passed on orally in India. Then we have another person called Megasthenes who writes a book called Indica. Now, who was this Megasthenes? Megasthenes was the ambassador sent to the court of Chandragupta Maurya by Seleucus Nicator. So we have a Greek general, we'll come to that in some time. We have a Greek general called Seleucus Nicator. So Alexander had died. So many of his commanders began to fight amongst themselves to parcel out the empire established by Alexander. One among the generals of Alexander was the Seleucus Nicator, who had claimed the Asiatic provinces of Alexander's empire as his own. And we have Chandragupta Maurya, who was trying to consolidate his position, his newly established empire. Chandragupta Maurya had overthrown the Nandas, and he was trying to consolidate his newly established empire. So these two ambitious men came into contact with each other. They came into conflict with each other, and there was a war which was fought. In this war, we'll come to that in some time in detail when we do Chandragupta Maurya. In this war, Seleucus Nicator was defeated, and a peace treaty was signed. Among the terms of the peace treaty, apart from the other terms, we have a person called Megasthenes who was sent by Seleucus Nicator to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. So this Megasthenes comes to Chandragupta Maurya's court and he wrote a book. This Megasthenes wrote a book called Indica. We have lost the original Indica. we have found the quotations of Indica, in various Greek and Roman writers, in the books of various Greek and Roman writers. Obviously, these Greek and Roman writers had read the original Indica, and they quote extensively from the Indica, stating that Megasthenes had said this in the Indica, he had said that in the Indica, etc. So, from that, we come to know indirectly a number of things which Megasthenes had written in the Indica. So, Indica written in Greek language, and we get a lot of information about Mauryan administration, particularly the military administration of the Mauryas, the city administration of Patliputra, the society of the Mauryas, etc. But then, in many places, Megasthenes is wrong in his observations. After all, he was a foreigner looking at things from the eyes of a foreigner. So he was not able to interpret many things what he saw correctly. So many things which he writes in the Indica is factually not correct. We'll come to that later in some time. So Megasthenes' Indica also gives us a lot of information. Then we have another book called Geography, written by Strabo. He was a Greek, and it tells us that Chandragupta Maurya married Helena, the daughter of Seleucus Nicator. So this information is given in Strabo's Geography, who was a Greek writer. Then an epitome by Justine. So he was another Greek writer. He says that Chandragupta Maurya, whom he calls Sandrakotas, he says that he conquered the northwest portions of India and terminated all those governors who had been appointed by Alexander, all those generals who had been appointed by Alexander in the northwest portions of India. So this is the information given by Justine, right? Then we have Indica of Arian. Another scholar called Arian writes a book called Indica. He talks about the strength of the Nanda army. So he was a Greek writer. Nandas, what was the strength of the Nanda army? 2 lakh infantry, 60,000 cavalry, 6,000 war elephants. So this is the information given by Arian, another writer who writes another book called Indica. Then we have Pliny's Natural History, written in the first century AD. So he was a Roman writer, Pliny. So he was a Roman, and he talks about the strength of the Mauryan army, 6 lakh infantry, 30,000 cavalry, 9,000 war elephants, and 8,000 chariots. So that was the strength of the Mauryan army according to Pliny in his book Natural History. Then we also have Chinese accounts. You see, Fahian was the first Chinese traveler to come to India. He came during the time of Chandragupta II, Vikramaditya. So during the time of Chandragupta II, he came, Fahian, first Chinese traveler to come to India, and he talks about Mauryan monuments. For example, the stone palace which had been built by Ashoka. So he talks about it. He says that probably it was built by spirits. It was so beautiful that it must have been built by spirits, he says. Then we have the second Chinese traveler called Hunsang, who came during the time of Harshavardhana in the 7th century AD. And Hunsang writes a book called Siyuki. And Hunsang tells us that Ashoka was converted to Buddhism by a boy monk called Upagupta. Upagupta, a young boy monk, was the one who converted Ashoka to Buddhism. That is information given by Hunsang. Then we have the books of Sri Lanka, Dvipavamsha, Mahavamsha, Great Chronicle, Dvipavamsha, Island Chronicle, Kulavamsha, Lesser Chronicle, Vamsata Pakasini. All these books give us information about the Mauryas. Mahavamsha, one of the books, tells us that it was Ashoka's children, Mahendra and Sangamitra, who introduced Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And they brought a sapling from the original people tree under which the Buddha had attained nirvana, and they planted that sapling of the people tree in Sri Lanka. In fact, we have the remnants, the descendant of that tree, still alive in Sri Lanka. They have kept it, they have guarded that tree. The original tree under which the Lord Buddha had attained nirvana was cut off by Shashank of Gowda, a contemporary of Harsha by name Shashanka, who was a Shaivite, who was a Shiva worshipper, cut off the Bodhi tree. So Mahamamsha tells that the children of Ashoka, Mahendra and Sangamitra, introduced Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So that information is given there. Then Divyavadana, it is a book of Tibet, a Tibetan Buddhist book. It talks about Ashoka. It gives an account of Ashoka. It is written in Tibetan language. So these are the various foreign writers, foreign literary sources for the study of the Mauryas, right? Then we come to uh, um, the indigenous literature, the local authors. who give us a lot of information about Mauryas. So, indigenous literature. We have the Arthashastra of Kautilya, the Arthashastra written by Kautilya. So, or Vishnugupta or Chanakya, called by various names, Kautilya, Vishnugupta, Chanakya. So, he talks about elaborately about the Mauryan administration. So, a copy of the Arthashastra original manuscript was found in 1905 in a library in Mysore by R. Shama Shastri. So, this in the Arthashastra, we get a lot of information about Mauryan administration. And Kautilya is called Indian Machiavelli. So we have this Italian author called Machiavelli. He was a diplomat, a historian, a writer, Machiavelli. So Machiavelli, he writes a book called The Prince. He belonged to the Renaissance era, this Machiavelli. So he writes a book called The Prince. And in that book called The Prince, Machiavelli believed that fair and foul means are fine. Even foul means are fine for a person to establish a kingdom and keep that kingdom. So, duplicity, dubiousness, cruelty, falsehood, all those things are fine as far as the king is able to safeguard his kingdom and its people. So, in other words, end justifies the means. The end is important. The welfare of the king and his people is more important than the means adopted to achieve that welfare. So, Kautilya thought similarly like Machiavelli, who wrote the book called The Prince, right? So that's why it's called Indian Machiavelli. Kautilya is called Indian Machiavelli for that reason. Then we have another book called The Mudra Rakshasa, written by Vishaka Datta. Are you there with me, all of you? Are you clear? Is the speed okay? Are you able to understand whatever I'm saying? Clear? Okay, thank you. Right. So we'll move on. So then we have a book called Mudra Rakshasa, written by Vishakadatta. So Vishakadatta was an author of the 5th century AD. He belonged to the Gupta period, Vishakadatta, and he writes a book called Mudra Rakshasa. Mudra Rakshasa, the minister's signet ring, literally means the minister's signet ring. It talks about the so-called Mauryan revolution. Understand this? This book called Mudra Rakshasa talks about the so-called Mauryan revolution. So that now let me explain to you what is Mauryan revolution as given in the Mudra Rakshasa of Vishakadatta. What is Mauryan revolution? What is the meaning of Mauryan revolution? Now, so we are told that during the time of the last Nanda ruler Dhanananda, so when Dhanananda was the king, there was a minister under him in his court. His name was Chanakya. So Chanakya served as a minister under Dhanananda. We all know in yesterday's class we have seen Alexander came and went back. But many of the Greeks did not go back along with him. Many of his soldiers and officers did not go back along with him. They married the local women of northern Afghanistan or Bactria. So they married the local women of northern Afghanistan or Bactria and they settled down there. These Greeks came to be called Bactrian Greeks. And these Greeks were living on the borders of the Nanda Empire. So when Dhanananda was the king, he felt, Chanakya, who was one of his ministers, felt that the Greeks who were living on the borders of the Nanda Empire might later threaten the Nanda Empire. So therefore, in front of the court, in front in a full court before the king, Chanakya is supposed to have requested his king Dhanananda to provide him military assistance. So Chanakya requested Dhanananda, you please give me military assistance. I feel that these Greeks who are living on the borders of the Nanda Empire might attack or threaten our kingdom or our empire. I will take that army and I will drive away the Greeks from that area. So that's what Chanakya is supposed to have requested his king Dhanananda. In front of everybody in the open court, Chanakya is supposed to have been insulted very badly by Dhanananda. So Dhanananda insulted Chanakya to such an extent that Chanakya decided to resign from his services. So he resigned from the services of Dhanananda. But at the same time, he took a firm resolution in his mind that he will work to bring an end to the Nandas. He will bring an end to the Nandas. So Chanakya resigned from the king's service and he was from the Mahajanapada of Gandhara. So Chanakya belonged to the Mahajanapada of Gandhara, and the capital of Gandhara was Takshashila. So the city of Takshashila. So as he was walking by one day in the city of Takshashila, he found a boy by name Chandragupta Maurya. So he saw a lot of promise in this boy, a strong, well-built boy, and Chanakya took him under him. And these two, Chanakya and Chandragupta Maurya, were the ones who plotted the end of the Nandas. Chanakya used his brain, Chandragupta Maurya his brawn. So they secretly organized an army, and Chandragupta Maurya, on the instructions of Chanakya, began to attack the border areas of the Nanda empire. So one by one, he began to conquer the border areas, and slowly he made his way to the capital, Pataliputra, killed Dhanananda, and established the Mauryan empire. This is called Mauryan Revolution. How Chandragupta Maurya, with assistance of Chanakya, overthrew Dhanananda and established the Mauryan Empire or Mauryan Kingdom, Mauryan Empire. So this is called Mauryan Revolution, and this story is given in the Mudra Rakshasa, written by Vishaka Datta. Are you there with me, all of you? Clear the story? Mauryan Revolution. Okay, thank you. Then we have Bana's Harshitarita. Bana was the court poet of Harsha. Bana was the court poet of Harsha, Harshavardhana. Harshavardhana is considered to be the last great emperor of ancient India. So Hyun Sang visited his kingdom. Bana in his Harshitarita talks about the decline of the Mauryan Empire and the assassination of the last Maurya, Brihadratha, by Pushyamitra Sunga. So Brihadratha, the last Mauryan king, was unpopular. People did not like him, and even the army did not like him. So the commander of Brihadratha, by name Pushyamitra Sunga, who was very ambitious, he killed his own master, Brihadratha, in front of the army and usurped the throne, snatched away the throne, thus ending the Mauryan dynasty and establishing the Sunga dynasty. So this story is given in Harshitarita, written by Bana Bhatta. Then we have the history of Kashmir, written by Kalhana from ancient times to the 12th century AD, Raja Tarangini, and talks about the history of Kashmir. And he says that Mauryas ruled over Kashmir and Ashoka built Srinagar. So this information is given in Raja Tarangani of Kalhana. Then Puranas talk about the genealogy of the Mauryas. So what is genealogy? The family tree, founder, important kings, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Those details are found in the Puranas. It talks about the genealogy of the Mauryas. And Mauryas are called as Shudras and unrighteous, that they did not rule according to Dharma. Then we have the Jatakas, Buddhist books called Jatakas. They talk about the socio-economic conditions of the Mauryas. The previous 550 births of the Buddha, Jatakas, contained in stories called Jatakas. When we come to Buddhism, we'll talk about it in detail, right? Jatakas are nothing but the previous 550 births of the Buddha. So before Siddhartha was born, Siddhartha was born, and in that life, as Siddhartha, he became the Buddha, isn't it? He attained nirvana, the enlightenment, and he became the Buddha. But then, before he was born as Siddhartha, the Buddha is supposed to have taken 550 births. In one birth, he was a monkey. In another birth, he was a donkey. In another birth, he was a cow. Another birth, he was a maid servant, etc. In every birth, I believe, Buddha did only good. Ultimately, he was born as Siddhartha, in which life he attained nirvana and he became the Buddha, after which there is no rebirth for the Buddha on this earth. This concept is called Bodhisattva, and these stories, 550 birth stories, previous birth stories of the Buddha, are contained in stories called Jatakas. Right? So Jatakas talk about the socio-economic conditions of the Mauryas. Then, of course, we have this Jain book called Parishishta Parvan, written by Hemachandra. So Hemachandra was a 12th century scholar. He was living in the 12th century AD in the Solanki court, Chalukyas of Gujarat, also called the Solankis. They ruled over Gujarat, the Chalukyas of Gujarat. And Hemachandra writes many books. Parishishta Parvan is one of them. Neminatha Charitra, Trishashti Lakshana Mahapurana, etc. He wrote many books. He was in the court of Jayasimha Siddharaja, one of the greatest of the Chalukyas of Gujarat. So tells us, he gives us a story about how the Buddhist Sangha, so how the Jain Sangha got divided into Digambar and Shwetambar. How the Jain Sangha got divided into Digambara and Shwetambara. So he talks about the migration of Chandragupta Maurya to South India. So he says there was a famine in Magadha. I'll come to that. There was a famine and there was no rains for 12 years. Chandragupta Maurya gave away the throne to his son Bindusar and he came away to the south to Shravana Belagola, present day Karnataka, a place called Shravana Belagola. And there he committed Sallekhana, that is voluntarily giving up food until one dies. Sallekhana. So that is a recommended Jain form of dying. Even Jain monks and nuns nowadays die like this. And that community gives a lot of respect to people who die like this. This is the recommended form of dying for the Jains, given by Vardhaman Mahavira. So, so Chandragupta Maurya also committed Sanlekhana and died like this. This information is given by Hemachandra. These are the indigenous sources for the study of the Mauryas. Then, did you understand? So we have looked at the literary sources, foreign literary sources, and indigenous literary sources for the study of the Mauryas. Then this is the picture of Kautilya. Probably looked like this: Kautilya or Chanakya or Vishnugupta. Now let us come to the edicts of Ashoka, the archaeological sources for the study of the Mauryas, and among them the most important are the edicts. Now what are edicts? Edicts are royal orders, royal messages, which Ashoka got inscribed on the surface of rocks, pillars, and caves. So these are called rock edicts, pillar edicts, and cave edicts. They are found in 47 locations, and there are totally 181 edicts found. Till now, we have found 181 edicts in 47 locations. And these edicts are messages or orders to his people and sometimes to his officers. So they are instructions in the form of instructions to his people, to his subjects, or to his officers. So as you can see on your screen, these are the rock edicts. So this is a rock edict. So there's a wherever there was a big boulder and that boulder was unshakable, Ashoka found it prudent to get his message inscribed on that big boulder. That is called rock edict. Then he installed pillars like this. He installed pillars and he got his message inscribed or written on those pillars. That's called pillar edict. Then he also got caves dug up. And on the walls of these caves, he got his message written. This is called cave edict. So rock edict, pillar edict, cave edict. Right? Now, these rock edicts, rock and pillar edicts, are divided into major and minor. Major and minor. Minor rock edict, major rock edict, minor rock edict, major pillar edict, minor pillar edict. So on what basis have historians divided the rock edicts and pillar edicts into major and minor? You see, major rock edict. What is the meaning of major rock edict? Let us say there are 7-8 lines. In 7-8 lines, Ashoka is conveying some message to his people. That's called major rock edict. What is minor rock edict then? Only in 1 or 2 sentences, Ashoka is conveying some message to his people. That becomes minor rock edict. So depending upon the length of the content of these edicts, they are divided into major or minor. And depending upon the surface on which they were written or inscribed, they are called rock, pillar, or cave. Are you there with me? So depending upon the surface on which his message was inscribed, it is called rock edict, pillar edict, or cave edict. And depending upon the length of the content of these edicts, they are divided into major and minor. So we have major and minor rock edicts and pillar edicts. Cave edicts are only one. There is no minor, major in cave edict. Right? Okay, good. So here we have on this map the distribution of rock edicts of Ashoka, rock edicts, pillar edicts, cave edicts. So let us discuss the edicts of Ashoka. They are found in 3 languages and 4 scripts. On your screen, they are found in 3 languages. What are the 3 languages? Prakrit, Greek, and Aramaic. Prakrit, Greek, and Aramaic. These are the 3 languages where Ashoka edicts are found, and 4 scripts. What are the 4 scripts? Brahmi, Kharoshti, Greek, and Aramaic. So they are found in 3 languages and 4 scripts. Now, throughout India, please understand, throughout India, in most parts of India, it is mostly found in the Prakrit language and the Brahmi script. Prakrit language and Brahmi script. In the West, that is present day Pakistan, it is found in the Prakrit language and Kharoshti script. And in the Northwest, that is present day Afghanistan, it is found in Greek and Aramaic language and script. Greek and Aramaic language and script. So predominantly throughout India, Prakrit language, Brahmi script. In the West, that is Pakistan, Prakrit language and Kharoshti script. And in the Northwest, that is you can see here, Kandahar uses bilingual, that is Greek and Aramaic language and Greek and Aramaic script. In the West, that is Pakistan, he uses Kharoshti script and Prakrit language, Manshera and Shahbaz Gadi. And throughout India, he uses Brahmi script and Prakrit language. Clear? Clear about this? All of you? Can I move on? Please raise your hands. Can I move on? Okay. Thank you. So then, the Brahmi script, Ashokan edicts are mostly written in the Brahmi script and Prakrit language. The Brahmi script was deciphered by an officer of the East India Company called James Prinsep in the year 1837. It was deciphered in 1837. The Kharoshti script was deciphered by Norris. Brahmi, along with Greek, is written from left to right. We all write from left to right, isn't it? So, similarly, Brahmi, along with Greek, is written from left to right. And Kharoshti and Aramaic are written from right to left. Kharoshti and Aramaic is written from right to left. Brahmi and Greek is written from left to right. So, remember that direction of writing of these scripts. Yeah, it's found in 3 languages, Atish. Yes, 3 languages. That is Prakrit language, Greek and Aramaic language. And 4 scripts. Now, yesterday I told you, in all his inscription, Ashoka was known by his titles. Nobody knew about Ashoka till 1915. And some king was claiming himself to be Devanam Piya, Piyadasi, Devanam Piya, beloved of the gods, and Piyadasi, one who looks on auspiciousness, one who is dear to behold. So, some king was claiming himself to be Devanam Piya and Piyadasi. So, historians were perplexed. It was a puzzle as to who this king was claiming himself by these titles. But ultimately, in 1915, at a place called Maski in the Raichur district of Karnataka, an edict was found where Ashoka uses his personal name, Ashoka Maharaja. So Ashoka uses the word Ashoka Maharaja. And the word Ashoka is found in 4 places. Maski, Nittur, Udegalam. These 3 are in Karnataka. Maski, Nittur, Udegalam in Karnataka, and Gujjara in Madhya Pradesh. So we have the word Ashoka found in these 4 places. And one more 5th place you can add is, in the Kalaburgi district called Kanaganahalli. There's a village called Kanaganahalli in the present day Kalaburgi district of Karnataka, where Ashoka, we have found an edict where Ashoka claims himself to be Ranyo Ashoka. Ranyo is King Ashoka. So that's another place where we get the word Ashoka. So Ashoka was the personal name of Ashoka. Ashoka was his personal name. So as I told you in our last class, Ashoka was his personal name. So Ashoka was his personal name. Then Piyadasi was the official name. Official name of Ashoka. And Devanam Piya was the royal title of that period. Many kings also had taken the title of Devanampiya, royal title, general royal title, right? So Ashoka was his personal name, Piyadasi his official name, and Devanampiya royal title. Now this is James Princip on the left of your screen, and this is the Ashokan Brahmi. You can see here Ashokan Brahmi, a, I, ra, like that. Ka, ka, ki. So he was able to decipher the Ashokan Brahmi. You can see these letters here. So only James Princip could have done this, I suppose. We find we would want somebody like him to decipher the Indus script, and then we will know more about this, about the Harappans once this script is deciphered. So this is the Brahmi script which was deciphered by James Princip, and he was able to read the Ashokan Brahmi. You can see here, this is the minor rock edict at Musky. Picture of the minor rock edict at Musky, this one. And this is Devanampiya Ashoka. Devanampiya Ashoka. This one. So here, edicts are found on the surface of rocks, pillars, and caves. Rock edict, pillar edict, and cave edict. They're divided into major and minor. Rock edict and pillar edicts are divided into major and minor, depending upon the length of the content of these edicts. So let us talk about the rock edicts of Ashoka. I'll just take a pause. Just hold on. I'll just take a pause for about 2 minutes. The AC here is not working, so just hold on. It's over. I cannot go beyond 11 o'clock. Ready, Mahmoud? Yeah. Yeah, please put a fan. Sorry. Can we continue? Hello, all of you. Can I continue? Okay. Now let us look at the rock edicts of Ashoka, important rock edicts. So, rock edict is nothing but Ashoka got his message inscribed on the surface of a huge boulder, immovable boulder. It's not easy to move that boulder, and he got his message inscribed on that boulder, the rock of a hill, without displacing that particular rock. Now let us look at the important rock edicts. Bhabru rock edict. Bhabru rock edict is found in West Bengal. Bhabru rock edict. So here, Ashoka declares his faith in Buddhism, allegiance to Buddhism. He declares his faith or allegiance to Buddhism by proclaiming the three Saranyas. What is three Saranyas? That is, he is um, adhering to the teachings of the Buddha. He has bowed down before the three rules of the Buddha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Now, the Bhabru rock edict, from the Bhabru rock edict, we come to know that Ashoka converted himself to Buddhism 2.5 years after the Kalinga War. It was not immediately after the Kalinga War, as what was believed till then. What we are told is he saw so much of bloodshed in the Kalinga War. It melted his heart. He had never seen so much of people suffering with pain, etc. And therefore, he overnight converted himself to Buddhism. That's what we have been told. But then once the Babru rock edict was discovered at West Bengal, um, we come to know that it was only 2.5 years after the Kalinga War that he converted himself to Buddhism, and he narrated this three saranyas: Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Then we have 14 major rock edicts found at 8 places. Understand this: 14 messages of Ashoka inscribed on one huge boulder. You remember this? See this on your screen. Imagine this is a boulder. Okay, and such boulders are found at 8 places. And he inscribed all the messages, 1 to 14 messages, on each of these huge boulders. Major rock edict number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ultimately 14. So 14 major rock edicts. That is, he got those messages inscribed on one single boulder, and such boulders are found at 8 places. And what are the 14 messages of Ashoka? Let us talk about it. First of all, where are these places found? What are these 8 places? 2 are in Orissa, 2 are in Pakistan, so that makes it 4. One is in Maharashtra, one is in Gujarat, one is in Andhra Pradesh, one is in Uttarakhand. That makes it 8. So Dhauli and Orissa on your screen. Dhauli and Jaugada in Orissa, Manshera and Shahbazgarh in Pakistan. Then we have Yaragudi in Andhra Pradesh, Kurnool district, Sopara in Maharashtra, Girnar or Junagadh in Gujarat, and Kalsi in Uttarakhand. So these are the 8 places where we find huge single boulders, and in each of those, on each of those single boulders, we find 14 messages. So what are the 14 major rock edicts of Ashoka? Look on your screen. Let's understand this. Major rock edict number 1, and what is the message? Corresponding message: prohibition of animal sacrifice and festive gatherings. Prohibition of animal sacrifice and festive gatherings. So Ashoka initially was a non-vegetarian, and gradually he reduced the intake of non-veg, of meat, um, and it was restricted to 2 deer, 1 or 2 peacocks to be killed every day in the royal kitchen to serve Ashoka and his family. But later he even prohibited that. So he talks about prohibition of animal sacrifice and festive gatherings. So you have so many religions, so many sects, and each of those sects have their own festivals. So Ashoka says you don't celebrate festivals on a grand scale in a publicly. You celebrate it in your private, in a private manner. Don't go public, because that might create, you know, animosity in the society. So he bans festive gatherings and animal sacrifices. So it's not that people should not celebrate festival. In trying to celebrate your festival, you might hurt somebody else's religious sentiments. So you celebrate festival, but keep it in a very private manner. That's what he says. Number 2, welfare measures. He talks about welfare measures: digging of wells, tanks, planting saplings, construction of hospitals, roads, etc. So all these things he mentions in major rock edict number 2. And also he mentions the southern kingdoms: Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, and Sri Lanka, Tamraparani. The Cholas, Pandyas, Keralaputra or Cheras, and Tamraparani. So he talks about welfare measures and the southern kingdoms. Number 3, respect to Brahmanas and Shramanas. Who are Shramanas? Monks of the heterodox religions. So what is heterodox? Heterodox here is heterodox. That is those which oppose the existing belief systems. Those which opposed the existing belief systems. That is, existing belief system is the Vedic religion, which oppose the existing beliefs. And when I say beliefs, I would mean Vedic religion, right? So here we have heterodox sects like Buddhism, Jainism, Bhagavatism, no, Ajivika sect, Charvaka, etc. These are all examples of heterodox sects. So he says, respect to Brahmanas. People should respect Brahmanas and Shramanas. Shramanas are the monks of heterodox religions. Then number four, he preaches non-violence. He says he wants the sound of war drums to be replaced by sound of dhamma. Bheri Gosha. Instead of hearing the sound of war drums, when do you play the war drums? Before the king goes to war? At the time of going to war, the war drums are played before the war starts, or when the king is going away to a campaign. So, Bheri Gosha to be replaced by Dhamma Gosha, the sound of Dhamma. Number five, humane and kind treatment of slaves. So, slavery as an institution existed in the Mauryan period. He says people should treat the slaves in a humane manner, in a kind manner, as a human being, not as an animal, humane manner. Then he talks about Dhamma Mahamatras, appointment of a class of officers to propagate Dhamma. Their duty was to spread Dhamma, propagate Dhamma. So appointment of Dhamma Mahamatras to propagate Dhamma. And emperor used to pardon prisoners for good behavior on his coronation anniversary. So on his coronation anniversary, um, many of the prisoners would be let free for on the grounds of good behavior. So this is number five. Number six, all people are my children, and he talks about public welfare. He says, just as I would like to treat my children, I would like to treat my subjects as my own children. So that is mentioned in Major Document number six, and he talks about public welfare. Then number seven, tolerance to each other's religions. So he says he would tolerate each other's religions. So people should tolerate each other's religions, and this becomes relevant even nowadays. Ashoka's Dhamma is relevant even nowadays when we have so much of intolerance creeping up in society as regards other people's religions or practices, etc. So it is even now relevant. Tolerance to each other's religions. Number eight, here he says he took up Dhamma Yatras in place of Vihara Yatras. So he says he prefers to take up Dhamma Yatras, that is, Yatras to propagate Dhamma. Yatras, Yatra or tours. So Dhamma tours, he would prefer to take up Dhamma tours instead of Vihara Yatra, pleasure tours. Instead of pleasure tours, he would prefer to take up Dhamma tours. Then number nine, people to discontinue rituals, sacrifices, and follow Dhamma. So people should discontinue rituals, sacrifices of animals, and follow Dhamma. So Ashoka defines Dhamma as freedom from evil. So he defines Dhamma in Major Rocket number 10. If you stop doing evil, that itself is Dhamma, he says. You stop doing evil, that is Dhamma. Then Dhamma is elaborately discussed in number 11. Number 12, Ashoka orders the people to live in harmony and peaceful coexistence. So there was a lot of tension in the society during the period of Ashoka. By the time Ashoka came to power, already you have two sects within Buddhism. Um, just hold on. So just 2 minutes. I'll be shifting to another studio because of some technical problem here. The AC is not working, so I'm sitting under lights and it's very very hot for me. So I'll be shifting to another studio. So just bear with me for 2 minutes. Is it fine? Hello? Just hold on. Just 2 minutes, and I'll be continuing from here onwards in the new studio. Okay. Thank you. I'll mute it. Yeah. Am I audible and visible? Am I audible and visible? All of you? Hello? Please raise your hand so that I can continue. Please raise your hands. Audio and video both are buffering. No, sir, they say. Just hold on. Okay. Voice issues. Is it okay now? Clear? Hemlata, Sridhara, Shreya, clear now. Voice is breaking? No? Hemlata, it's clear now. All of you? Great. So we'll continue. Thank you. Thank you. So we were discussing the 14 major rockets of Ashoka. We'll come back here. So 10th major rock edict, he defines Dhamma as freedom from evil. So stop doing evil, and that itself is Dhamma, he says. Dhamma is elaborately discussed in major rock edict number 11. Then Ashoka orders the people to live in harmony and peaceful coexistence. So I was discussing this part. You see, there was a lot of intersectarian conflict during the time of Ashoka. We hear of almost 50 revolts happening during the time of Ashoka itself. By the time Ashoka came to power, the second Buddhist council had taken place, and Buddhism had got divided into Theravadins or Sthaviravadins, and Mahasannikas. So we have two sects in Buddhism, the Sthaviravadins or Theravadins and Mahasannikas. So Theravadins were following totally different practices. Mahasangikas, Theravadins were strictly following the teachings of the Buddha. Mahasangikas had begun to make 10 new rules for themselves, and they were following a totally different set of practices as opposed to what Buddha had told. So again, we have Lokayata or Charvaka sect, Lokayata or Charvaka sect. Then we have Ajivika sect existing during this period. Then, of course, you have the Vedic religion existing. A lot of foreigners were coming into India during the Mauryan period, even earlier, Greeks, Romans, etc. They married Indian women, and you have the progeny born to them, where the father was a foreigner, the mother was an Indian, so etc. So there was a lot of changes happening in the society, and we also hear of a certain amount of intolerance, intersectarian conflicts, etc. So one of the reasons why Ashoka brought in this concept of Dhamma is to bring about order, peace, and tolerance in the society. So he asked people to live in harmony and peaceful coexistence in major rock edict number 12. Then we go to the 13th major rock edict. This is the longest of the lengthiest of the 14 major rock edicts. The lengthiest of the 14 major rock edicts. It talks about the Kalinga War. So he says, in the beginning of the 9th year, so Ashoka, sometime in 260 or 261 BC, we have the Kalinga War happening. Ashoka attacks Kalinga or modern Orissa, and he tells us in this 13th major rock edict, 1 lakh people were killed. 1 lakh people, 1 lakh were killed. 1.5 lakh people were taken prisoners. 1.5 lakh were taken prisoners. And many times that number, that is many times 1.5 lakhs. Many times that number perished. So 1 lakh people were killed, 1.5 lakh were taken prisoners. They were made prisoners of war, POWs, and many times that number perished. Right? So he talks about the Kalinga War. Then he also mentions the southern kingdoms, the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, and the contemporary Greek kingdoms which existed during those days. Probably we can presume diplomatic and cultural contacts trade and diplomatic contacts between the Mauryan Empire and these Greek rulers. So Ashoka gives the list of these Greek kings, as you can see on your screen: Antiochus II, Theos of Syria; Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt; Alexander of Epirus; Magas of Cyrene or Libya; and of course, Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt. So Antiochus II of Theos of Syria, Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt, Antigonus Gonatas of Macedonia, Alexander of Epirus, that is Greece, and Magas of Cyrene or Libya. So these are the contemporary Greek rulers during the time of Ashoka. He makes a mention of that. And in the major docket edict number 14, he orders that all the above edicts, all the above messages should be engraved on those rocks. So these are the 14 major rock edicts of Ashoka. Are you there with me? Hemalata perished is died. 1 lakh people were killed, 1.5 lakh people were taken prisoners, and many times that number perished. Perished is died. Okay, so imagine this is a boulder. Imagine this is a boulder, and such boulders are found at 8 places. And all those 14 messages have been inscribed on all those boulders found at 8 places. So eight such boulders found at 8 places, and on each of those boulders we have the 14 messages of Ashoka inscribed. That is, these are called 14 major rock edicts found on a single rock, found at 8 places. Clear? So that's why I mentioned here, and you can see on your screen 14 major rock edicts on a single rock found at 8 places. 8 places. So remember these 8 places. Then we come to pillar edicts of Ashoka. Now, Jia, there were 8 boulders at 8 places. 14 messages were inscribed on each of those boulders. 8 boulders at 8 places. Okay, and then 14 messages found on all those 8 boulders, 1 to 14. Okay, right. Then we have pillar edicts of Ashoka. Pillar edicts. So imagine this is a pillar edict. So you see, this is a pillar edict. Imagine this is a pillar. And Ashoka got whatever his message he wanted to convey to his people or officers inscribed on such pillars. So these are called pillar edicts. They are divided into major and minor again. So again, they contain royal messages of Ashoka erected in the middle of habitations. Rampurva, Laurya Nandangad, Laurya Araraj. They are in Bihar. These 3 are in Bihar. Rampurva, Laurya Nandangad, Laurya Araraj. Then Kaushambi in Allahabad, Rumindai, that is Lumbini, the birthplace of the Buddha, Delhi Meerut, Delhi Dopra. So let me explain this. So 3 are found in Bihar: Rampurva, Laurya Nandangad, Laurya Araraj. Then Kaushambi, which was later shifted to Allahabad. Now look here. So this is the Laurya Nandangad pillar in Bihar, where you have a single lion displayed on top of Ashoka's pillar. Single lion. It has only 1 lion. Now, look here on your screen. There was a Ashokan pillar at Kaushambi. So imagine this is the Ashokan pillar at Kaushambi. It was originally at Kaushambi. Where is Kaushambi? Kaushambi in UP. And Ashoka had installed this pillar at Kaushambi, and whatever he wanted to mention, he had mentioned it here. His message, right? Now, in our history later, we have the Guptas who come to power. From the 5th century AD, rather from the 3rd century AD, 275 AD onwards, we have the Guptas ruling. And the greatest of the Gupta kings was a person called Samudragupta. He is supposed to have conquered the whole of India. Who? The Samudragupta. And Samudragupta had a minister. His name was Harisena. Harisena, a minister of Samudragupta, wanted to highlight the military achievements of Samudragupta, his master. What are the areas conquered by his master, Samudragupta? And this Ashokan pillar was standing at Kaushambi in UP. There was some space below. Okay, there was some space below. And Harisena felt this is the right place to get the military achievements of Samudragupta inscribed. So he utilized that space on an Ashokan pillar to inscribe the military achievements of Samudragupta. Okay. Then this pillar was shifted from Kaushambi to Allahabad by Jahangir. Jahangir was the son of Akbar, Salim, who becomes Jahangir. And Jahangir also has inscribed some message on that pillar, which is now at Allahabad. So this pillar, which is now at Allahabad, originally stood at Kaushambi. So therefore, it is called Allahabad Kosam pillar. Now at Allahabad, but earlier at Kaushambi. Hence called Allahabad Kosam pillar. And therefore, it has the messages of three kings. What are the three kings? I just now told you. Who are the three kings on whose message is contained on this Ashokan pillar, which is now found at Allahabad? Number one, who is the first king? Ashoka. Second king, Shilpa, Samudragupta, Jia, right? Jia is right. Ashoka, Samudragupta, Jahangir. So it contains the messages of all of you would have known this. So it contains the messages of three kings, an Ashokan pillar, which was originally at Kaushambi. It is now called Allahabad Kosam pillar. You see this? Kaushambi, Allahabad. It is also called Allahabad Kosam pillar. It's also called Allahabad Kosam pillar. So it contains the messages of Ashoka, Samudragupta 1, Samudragupta 2, and Jahangir 3. Right? Then we have Delhi Topra, Delhi Meerut. You can see here Delhi Meerut, Delhi Topra. So here we have 7 cities of Delhi. You see, Delhi is a megalopolis. 7 cities of Delhi, out of which 5 were built by the Delhi Sultans. When we do Delhi Sultanate, we'll talk about it. So what are the 7 cities of Delhi? We have Mehroli, built by Qutbuddin Aibak. Then we have Siri, founded by Alauddin Khalji. Siri, Alauddin Khalji. Then Tughlaqabad, founded by Ghiasuddin Tughlaq, the founder of the Tughlaq dynasty, Ghiasuddin Tughlaq. Then Jahanpana, founded by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Firozabad, the 5th city, built by Firuz Shah Tughlaq. And of course, 2 more were added by the Mughals. One was Deenpana, which was added by Humayun, and Shahjahanabad by Shah Jahan. You know, you have Firuz Shah Tughlaq, who succeeded Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Firuz Shah Tughlaq was the cousin of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. He built the 5th city of Delhi. This is Firozabad, the 5th city of Delhi. And he wanted to beautify Firozabad. And there was an Ashokan pillar at Meerut in UP, another Ashokan pillar at Topra in Haryana. So he got those 2 pillars shifted to Delhi. So therefore, it's called Delhi Topra, Delhi Meerut. You can see here, Delhi Meerut, Delhi Topra. This was done by Firuz Shah Tughlaq. Did you understand? Topra in Haryana, Meerut in UP, now found in Delhi. And it was shifted by Firuz Shah Tughlaq, who wanted to beautify his capital, Firozabad. Are you there with me? Yeah. It was Jahangir. According to most of the history textbooks, it was Jahangir who shifted the Ashokan pillar from Kaushambi to Allahabad. Some books say Akbar. It was not Akbar, it is Jahangir. Most of the historians agreed to that. Exit. Kulla, I have answered your doubt. Then we come to Rumindai. You see Rumindai inscription. What is this Rumindai inscription? Buddha was born at Lumbini. Lumbini is the birthplace of the Buddha. And Ashoka visited Lumbini, the birthplace of the Buddha, in his 21st regnal year. 21st regnal year. That is 21 years since he had come to power. That's called 21st regnal year. So Ashoka visited Lumbini in his 21st regnal year. And he wanted to mark the nativity of the Buddha. He wanted to tell the world that Lord Buddha was born here. So what did Ashoka do? He installed one pillar there. At Lumbini, he installed one pillar there. Okay, and he has left an inscription. This is called Rumindai inscription. Lumbini, another name for Lumbini is Rumindai. Rumindai inscription. And in this inscription, he reduced the tax payable by the people of Lumbini to 1/8. He gave a tax concession to the people of Lumbini. Lord Buddha was born there, therefore it asked the people of Lumbini to pay only 1/8 of the tax. So this is the only inscription which makes a precise reference to Mauryan taxation. This is the only inscription which makes a precise reference to Mauryan taxation, the Urumindai inscription. Are you there with me, all of you? These are the important inscriptions, pillar inscriptions. Can you please raise your hand? Can I move further? Hello? Clear? Okay. So you can see this is Ashoka pillar at Allahabad. Then this is the Delhi Topra, Delhi Meerut pillars. This is the Rumindai inscription, which is found at Lumbini, which is the Nepal Terai, in Nepal now. Now, also, let us talk about cave edicts. So we have discussed about major rock edicts, pillar edicts. Let us talk about cave edicts. Now, Ashoka dug up caves. He got some caves dug up in the Bara hills in Bihar. So, you see, so here we have the Bara hills. Bara hills, Bihar. So imagine this is the mountain. Okay, this is the mountain. This is the mountain. So Ashoka dug up caves, in such natural mountains. And when you go into the cave, it will look something like this. So it will look something like this. Okay, so this is how a cave or a vihara. Vihara means meant for the residential purposes of monks. Vihara means monastery. Monastery. So monks used to stay in caves like this. So they'll dig up a cave. This is the entrance to the cave. Imagine this is the entrance to the cave. These are the cells. These are the small cells where the monks would stay. And this is a common hall. This is a common hall where the monks would pray. This would be a hall. And these are the cells. So they will take rest here, etc. And then they will stay within the cave. And a cave will look something like this. So you look here on your screen. This is the entrance to the Bara caves, Bihar. This was dug up on the orders of Ashoka. He got 4 caves dug up like this. This is the entrance. You can see an arch here. See that? It was not that arch as a design was not known to Indians. It had been forgotten. It was reintroduced by the Turks. When the Turks established rule in North India, they introduced the arch. So arch as a design was existing. We can see at the entrance of the Bara caves an arch. There's another arch here. Okay. So, and a cave will look something like this. So Ashoka dug up 4 caves in the Bara hills and he donated them to the Ajivika monks. Now you might wonder who are these Ajivika monks. Understand this? I'll just tell you in brief because in the context I have to tell you who are these Ajivikas. Who are these Ajivikas? It was a heterodox sect. Now you see who was the founder of Jainism. Who is considered to be the founder of Jainism? Mahavir, very good. Mahavir. So you see, Mahavira is considered to be the real founder of Jainism. So we are told that at the age of 30 years, Vardhaman, his original name was Vardhaman, and he later became Mahavira, Vardhamana Mahavira. So Mahavir left home at the age of 30 years. So he took up sannyas, right? And for the next 12 years, he was wandering. That is till the age of 42 years. Out of these 12 years of his wandering, for the first 6 years, he was joined by a person called Makkali Goshala. Makkali Goshala or Goshala Maskari Putra. Goshala Maskari Putra. Now, he was a disciple of Vardhaman, this Makkali Goshala or Goshala Maskari Putra. And along with this Makkali Goshala, Vardhaman wandered around for 6 years out of the 12 years. Later, they had differences. They had differences over two issues. One was whether to wear clothes or not. That is over the issue of nudism. So, Vardhaman was for nudism, not to wear clothes. I'll come to the details when I do new in Jainism, etc. And then, of course, rejuvenation of the soul, whether the soul rejuvenates itself or not. So they fought over these two issues. They had differences over these two issues and they parted ways. So Vardhaman went one direction, Makkali Goshala went another direction. Later, this Makkali Goshala became the founder of a sect. He established a sect called Ajivika sect. Now, what was the teaching of Makkali Goshala? It is called Niyati. The teaching of Makkali Goshala is called Niyati. Niyati is predeterminism. Predeterminism. That is, already things have been decided for you even before you are born. Even before you are born on this earth, things have been decided for you. Niyati, predeterminism. And therefore, you cannot change destiny. Whatever has to happen will happen. Therefore, do whatever you want. So that was his teaching. And he is considered to be the earliest teacher of predeterminism. Bindusara, that is Ashoka's father, Chandragupta Maurya's son, Bindusar, and Ashoka's father, was a follower of the Ajivika sect. He believed in the Ajivika philosophy. And Ajivikas were a pretty popular sect during the Mauryan period. So Ashoka dug up 4 caves in the Bara hills and donated these caves for the residential purposes of these Ajivika monks. Are you there with me? Do you understand who these Ajivikas were? So he donated these 4 caves. What are the 4 caves? He gave them names. You can see here on your screen: Sudama, Loma Sarishi, Karna Chaupara, and Vishwakarma or Vishwachompri. So these are the 4 caves dug up by Ashoka in the Bara hills, and he donated them to the residential purposes of Ajivika monks. In the nearby Nagarjuni hills, near to the Bara hills, we have Nagarjuni hills. There, Ashoka's grandson Dasharatha, dug up 3 caves and donated them to the Ajivika monks. And these caves are Gopika, Vadati, Vapia. These are the names given to these 3 caves in the Nagarjuni hills. These are, and outside these Nagarjuni caves, we have an inscription where Dasharatha claims himself as Devanampiya. He calls himself as Devanampiya. So he's the only Maurya after Ashoka to call himself by that name, by that title, Devanampiya, Ashoka's grandson, Dasharatha. So these are the various cave edicts of Ashoka. 4 in the Bara hills, 4 caves he dug up in the Bara hills, and 3 caves by his grandson Dasharatha in the Nagarjuna hills, in the nearby Nagarjuna hills. These are the edicts of the Mauryas. Rock edicts, pillar edicts, cave edicts. Can I move on? Hello? These are the Nagarjuna caves. You can see these are the Nagarjuna caves on your screen. Entrance to the Nagarjuna caves. Very near to the Bara hills, we have the Nagarjuna hills. And then we have other inscriptions, which also give information about the Mauryas. For example, the Priyadarshi inscription at Takshashila, which is now in Pakistan, Takshashila. It is in Pakistan. So the Priyadarshi inscription at Takshashila, a fragmentary inscription found at Lampaka or Lamghan in Afghanistan. Sohagaura copper plate inscription in the Gorakhpur district of UP. So this is in the Gorakhpur district of UP. It talks about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. So when there was a famine, in fact, these 2 inscriptions, Sohagaura and Mahastan inscriptions, these 2 talk about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. Famine relief measures. When a famine was going on in the Mauryan Empire, what all are the ameliorative steps? Steps to provide relief to the people taken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. Famine relief measures taken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. So these details are found in these 2 inscriptions. Mahastan inscription in the Bogra district of UP, the Nagarjuni hill cave inscription in Bihar, Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman, Gujarat. So all these are other inscriptions which give us some information about the Maurya. So we have a huge source of information for the study of the Mauryas, literary sources, archaeological sources, edicts of Ashoka, okay, and other inscriptions. Okay, let us come to the political history of the Mauryas. And of course, northern black polished ware, the distinctive pottery of the Mauryan period is northern black polished ware. Uh, Kennedy, see, we look at the questions. See, the reference point for all of you is the questions. What type of questions have appeared in the UPSC? So you can understand the level of difficulty of questions asked in the UPSC. Then you should make your own judgment. What to remember, what not to remember, what could be a possible question. So when you read widely, then you will have more reasons to eliminate. You'll be using your rational mind to eliminate things. You'll not be blindly eliminating because you read the textbook in a broad manner, right? So not everything is important, but I have put it in the context. So let us talk about the political history of the Mauryas. The three great Mauryas: Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara, Ashoka, and then we come to later Mauryas. Okay, then we come to later Mauryas. Um, So let us take a small break, 5 minutes break. Just take a 5 minutes break and come back. We will continue after 5 minutes, right? Just 5 minutes break. Hello? Can we go for a 5 minutes break? Please raise your hands so that you know that we're going for a break. Just 5 minutes and we'll come back. No, 10 minutes I can't give you puja, 5 minutes. Okay. Can we continue? Hello? Can we continue? Okay. So let us talk about the political history of the Mauryas. Chandragupta Maurya, the founder, then Bindusara, then Ashoka, etc. So here, first of all, Chandragupta Maurya. So let's talk about Chandragupta Maurya. CGM in short. So Chandragupta Maurya, you see, he comes to power at the age of 25. We are told he comes to power at the age of 25. He dethroned Dhanananda. So with the assistance of Chanakya, he killed Dhanananda and ended the Nanda dynasty and established the Mauryan Empire. And he came to power. Now, the first thing he did is he conquered the Ganga Valley. So he conquers the Gangetic region, that is where Patliputra is situated. So he first conquers that area. Then we see him going to the northwest and conquering everything up to the river Indus. Then we see him coming again down south and conquering everything up to the river Narmada. And then again we see him going to the northwest and fighting against Seleucus Nicator between 305 and 303 BC. I repeat, initially he conquered the Ganga Valley, that is where Patliputra is situated, in the Magadha region, the nucleus of the Magadha Empire. He conquered that area, including Patliputra. Then we see him going to the northwest and conquers everything. He conquers everything up to the river Indus. Right? Then we see him again coming down to central India and conquering everything up to the river Narmada. Up to the river Narmada. And between 303, 305 and 303 BC, we see Chandragupta Maurya fighting against Seleucus Nicator, the general of Alexander. Alexander had died, and one of his generals, Seleucus Nicator, was claiming the Asiatic part of Alexander's empire as his own. And here we have an upstart in the form of Chandragupta Maurya, who had recently overthrown the Nandas, who was trying to consolidate his newly established kingdom. So these two men came into conflict with each other. We don't know who defeated whom. We don't know who defeated whom, but we know that there was a peace treaty which was signed. So between 305 and 303 BC, there was a war, and in 303 BC, a peace treaty was signed. From the terms of this peace treaty, we come to know that probably it was Chandragupta Maurya who had defeated Seleucus Nicator. So according to the terms of this peace treaty, number one, Chandragupta Maurya gave 500 elephants to Seleucus Nicator. So CGM, in right short, Chandragupta Maurya gave away 500 elephants to Seleucus Nicator. And Seleucus Nicator, in turn, gave up the Trans-Indus region, that is Kabul, Kandahar, Herat. All these areas were given up by Seleucus Nicator. So he received those 500 elephants from Chandragupta Maurya, and Seleucus Nicator gave up all those areas to Chandragupta Maurya. Number two, Helena, the daughter of Seleucus Nicator. So she was the daughter of Seleucus Nicator. She was married by Chandragupta Maurya. And number three, Megasthenes, an ambassador, was sent by Seleucus Nicator to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Right. So Chandragupta Maurya conquered everything from parts of Afghanistan to the river Narmada, from the central portion of India. He ruled over this area for 24 years. And then we are told that there was a famine in the Magadha region. You see here, there was a famine here. There was no rains here for 12 years. No rains were happening for 12 years. And we are told by Hemachandra, a 12th century scholar in the Solanki court, in the Chalukyas of Gujarat court, Hemachandra, he tells us in his book Parishishta Parvan that a group of Jain monks under their leader Bhadrabahu were migrating towards South India. So who was the leader of these Jain monks? Bhadrabahu. So under their leader Bhadrabahu, this group of Jain monks were migrating towards South India. So Chandragupta Maurya abdicated the throne. That is, he gave away the throne to his son Bindusar. Then he also joined Bhadrabahu and the other Jain monks, and they all come to a place called Shravana Belagola in present-day Karnataka, Hassan district of Karnataka. And there they began to live. They began to live there. So, and Chandragupta Maurya committed Sallekana here. He gave up voluntarily food and died there, in the recommended Jain form of dying, Sallekana. So, Chandragupta Maurya committed Sallekana and died in Shravana-Belagola. So this is about about the story of Chandragupta Maurya. The concept of welfare state. What is welfare state? That is, the state exists for the sake of its citizens. The state exists for the sake of its citizens. Welfare state. The concept of welfare state was begun by Chandragupta Maurya. Now, how do we say this? We have two sources here. Number one, the Sohagaura and Mahastan inscriptions. So, Sohagaura and Mahastan inscriptions talk about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. So, when there was a famine, what all um, relief measures were undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya? These two inscriptions talk about that. Number two, we have the Sudarshana Lake. Sudarshana Lake constructed at Junagadh or Girnar during the time of Chandragupta Maurya by his governor called Vaishya Pushyagupta. So I'll use another page here on your screen. You see we have Gujarat. So imagine this is Gujarat, right? So this is Gujarat. It's a semi-arid zone. Rajasthan is next to it. So many parts of Gujarat, you have intense heat and also not much of rainfall. And that was the state of affairs even during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. So there was one place called Junagadh here, okay, or Girnar. And the governor of this Girnar was a person called Vaishya Pushyagupta. So Vaishya Pushyagupta was the Vaishya Pushyagupta was the governor of Junagadh during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. So we are told that this particular lake, the Junagadh lake, there's a lake called Sudarshana Lake. Sudarshana Lake. So imagine there's this lake here. This is the lake, Sudarshana Lake. The Sudarshana Lake. The Sudarshana Lake was constructed by the governor of Junagadh, Vaishya Pushyagupta, during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. So he was the governor at that point in time when this lake was built. He was the one who got that lake built. Then we have, during the time of Ashoka, who was the governor of Junagadh, a person called Yavanaraja Tushaspa. Yavanaraja Tushaspa. He was the governor of Junagadh during the time of Ashoka. And during the time of Ashoka, this lake was damaged. The walls of this lake was damaged. So Yavanaraja Tushaspa got that those walls repaired. He got that lake repaired, and he was the governor of Junagadh during the time of Ashoka. Then we are told that during the time of Rudradaman, the governor of Junagadh was Suvishka. Suvishka was the governor of Junagadh during the time of Rudradaman himself. Again, that lake was damaged because of floods in the neighboring rivers, and the Suvishka, the governor of Junagadh, during the time of Rudradaman I, he got that lake repaired without charging Vishti, that is forced labor, and Pranaya, emergency tax. So without imposing Vishti is forced labor, without imposing Vishti or forced labor, and Pranaya, emergency tax, he got that lake repaired. Fourthly, during the time of Skandagupta, his governor of Junagadh was Chakrapalita. He was the governor of Junagadh during the time of Skandagupta. And again, for the last time, it was repaired by Chakrapalita, the governor of Junagadh during Skandagupta's period. This is the history of the Sudarshana Lake. Where do we get the history of the Sudarshana Lake? The Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman. So we have an inscription called Junagadh rock inscription belonging to the period of Shaka king Rudradaman I, dated 150 AD. And in this inscription of Rudradaman, we get the history of the Sudarshana Lake. The history of Sudarshana Lake is found in this particular Junagadh rock inscription. So from this we come to know that the government of Chandragupta Maurya was a welfare state. So people were suffering from shortage of water. So to provide drinking water facilities, irrigation facilities for their fields, and also for drinking water, this lake was built by Vaishya Pushyagupta during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. And the Mahastan and Sohagaura inscriptions talk about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. Are you there with me? From this, we come to know that this was a welfare state. Are you there with me, all of you? Right? Hello, all of you. Are you clear? So, this is Chandragupta Maurya for you. Right? So, probably it looked like that. I found a picture on the net and I put it. So, he was the one who dethroned Dhanananda at the age of 25 years, occupied Patliputra, made it his capital, conquered the Gangetic Valley where you have Patliputra. Then he conquered everything up to the river Indus. Then he comes down south and conquers everything up to the river Narmada. And between 305 and 303 BC, he was fighting against Seleucus Nicator in the northwest. A peace treaty was concluded in 303 BC between these two people. From the terms of the peace treaty, we come to know that Chandragupta Maurya had defeated Seleucus Nicator. So Chandragupta Maurya gifted 500 elephants to Seleucus Nicator, and Seleucus Nicator gave up the Trans-Indus region. What is Trans-Indus region? The area across the Indus, like Kabul, Kandahar, Baluchistan, what we now call Kabul, Kandahar, Baluchistan, etc. So those areas were given up by Seleucus Nicator. Chandragupta Maurya married Helena, the daughter of Seleucus Nicator, and Megasthenes was sent as an ambassador by Seleucus Nicator to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Then we are told by this Jain scholar, Hemachandra of the 12th century AD, in his book Parishishta Parman, how Chandragupta Maurya abdicated the throne, what are the reasons for him giving up the throne in favor of his son Bindusar, going away to Shravana Belagola and committing Sallekhana there. So you can see here, these are the conquests of Chandragupta Maurya. This is the kingdom of Chandragupta Maurya from Afghanistan to river Narmada. Everything was conquered by him. So probably Seleucus Nicator looked like this. To the left of your screen, this is Megasthenes. And this is the Chandragiri Hill in Shravana Belagola in Hasan district of Karnataka. You can see here the statue of Bahubali Gommateshwara. Historically, the tallest monolithic statue in India is from this particular place, the statue of Bahubali Gommateshwara. We'll talk about it when I do Jainism. So here there is a cave called Chandragupta Basadi. So there's a gufa, there is a cave there where he used to stay, Chandragupta Maurya, emperor, and then he used to pray in a temple. This is the Chandragupta Basadi, which was built later. So it was a very small temple there earlier. Later it was built, this Chandragupta Basadi. So he prayed here in this place, in this temple, Chandragupta Maurya. And these are the footsteps of Chandragupta Munipati. So he's called Chandragupta Munipati. These are more than 3,000 years old. And these are the footsteps which are even now prayed to by the Jains. Right? The concept of welfare state, as I told you, was started by Chandragupta Maurya. It was expanded by Ashoka to a huge extent. But the concept of welfare state begins with Chandragupta Maurya. So how do we know this? These two inscriptions, Sohagaura and Mahastan inscriptions, talk about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. And secondly, the Sudarshana Lake was constructed during his period by Vaishya Pushyagupta, the governor of Junagadh. And we have the Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman, which gives us the history of the Sudarshana Lake. It was built by Vaishya Pushyagupta, the governor of Junagadh during the time of Chandragupta Maurya, repaired by Yavanaraja Tushaspa, the governor of Junagadh during Ashoka's period, repaired by Suvishka, the governor of Junagadh during Rudradaman's period, without charging Vishti and Pranaya. And ultimately it was repaired by Chakrapalita, the governor of Junagadh during the time of Skandagupta. So all these details are found in the Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman, one of the Shaka kings. We'll deal with the Shakas, etc. when we come to post-Maurya period, the next chapter. Right? Clear? So let us come to, this is the Junagadh rock inscription of Rudradaman on your screen. And then this is the Sudarshana Lake, I believe. I got this picture on the net, I put it. I don't know how far that is true, but anyway, this is what is the Sudarshana lake, probably. Then we come to the next king, Bindusara, the son of Chandragupta Maurya. Now, let's come to Bindusar. So, Bindusar. Bindusara, he is called Amitra Gata. Amitra Gata in Sanskrit. That is slayer of foes, slayer of enemies. One who killed his enemies, slayer of foes. And the Greeks call him Amitrochetes. Amitrochetes. Now, a 16th century Tibetan monk, Taranatha, he tells us that Bindusara conquered the land between the two seas. That is, we have the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. This area, that is South India, was conquered by Bindusara. So he says, Taranatha tells us, Lama Taranatha tells us, he was a 16th century Tibetan monk. 16th century Tibetan monk. He says that Bindusara conquered the land between the two oceans, the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea. And the deep south, that is, this is the deep south. This is the deep south where we have the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas ruling. Cholas, Pandyas, Cheras ruling this area. Even this area, the deep south, acknowledged the overlordship of the Mauryas and they paid tribute to the Mauryas. So the Mauryas were not able to rule the deep south directly because of the distance, the problem of distance and communication during those days. But we have evidence in the Tamil literature, in the Sangam literature, in a book called Shilapadigaram, we are told that we have Mauryan chariots were speedily racing across the Tamil land, throwing up dust, and white flags were fluttering on the top of their chariots. So from that we come to know that probably the Mauryas were also ruling over the deep south, but indirectly. So South India was conquered by Bindusara, according to Lama Taranatha. So he conquers South India, according to Lama Taranatha. So this Bindusara sent an ambassador to the present region of Syria. That is, Antiochus the First, Theos of Syria. So there was a Greek king called Antiochus the First, Theos of Syria. And he sent an ambassador to his court and he requested Antiochus to send these three things to him. What are the three things requested by Bindusar from Antiochus, the king of Syria? Please send me sweet wine. Look at this fellow. Bindusar, he wanted sweet wine to drink. He wanted dry figs to eat. Dry figs and a sophist, a philosopher or a sophist. So he said, please send a sophist also or a philosopher or a sophist. So an ambassador from Bindusara's court went to Syria and conveyed the news to Antiochus the First, the king of Syria. In return, Antiochus sent an ambassador to the court of Bindusara. His name was Dimachus. So Dimachus was sent to the court of Bindusar by Antiochus, and along with Dimachus, he sent two out of the three things asked. He sent him sweet wine, he sent him dry figs, but an instruction that in Greece, philosophers are not for sale. Philosophers or sophists are not for sale. So he did not send a philosopher. He sent him quite a lot of wine and dry figs so that, Bindusara is happy by drinking and eating them. But then he did not send any philosopher. But with an instruction that philosophers are not for sale in ancient Greece. Therefore, no philosopher can be sent. Then we have another ambassador who came to the court of Bindusar. His name was Dionysius. And this ambassador was sent by the king of Egypt, Ptolemy II, Philadelphus. The king of Egypt sent Dionysius to the court of Bindusar. Okay, hello, are you clear till here? So Bindusara is a person who conquered the land between the two seas. Remember that two ambassadors came visiting his court. One was Dimachus and the other was Dionysius, right? And then we are told, look here, understand this. We are told that the eldest son of Bindusar was Shushima. So not Shushma, this is Susima. So his eldest son was Susima, and he was appointed as the governor of Taxila, governor of Takshashila, which is now in Pakistan. And another son of Bindusar was Ashoka, who had been appointed as the governor of Ujjain. So Ashoka was the governor of Ujjain. Now, just before the death of Bindusar, we are told that there was a rebellion, a revolt in Takshashila. So there was a revolt in Takshashila because of bureaucratic atrocities. So a lot of taxes were being collected by the Mauryan officers. Shushima was not running the administration of Takshashila properly. So people of Takshashila and the merchants were very, very angry with that, and they had risen in revolt. Shushima failed to put down that revolt. Thereupon, Bindusara is supposed to have ordered his son Ashoka, another son Ashoka, to proceed from Ujjain to Takshashila and put down that revolt. So Ashoka went from Ujjain, he went from Ujjain to Takshashila. So he went from Ujjain to Takshashila and he put down that revolt successfully. We are told that when Ashoka was in Takshashila, at Patliputra, Bindusara died. Patliputra was the capital of the Mauryas, isn't it? So Bindusara died at Patliputra. So all the children of Bindusara, including Ashoka, made their way to Patliputra. So Ashoka went to Patliputra from Takshashila, not from Ujjain, because he had gone to Takshashila to put down the revolt there. And around that time, Bindusara died at Patliputra. So all the sons of Bindusara went to Patliputra to after the death of their father. And there was a civil war. We are told that there was a civil war which lasted for 4 years, 272 to 268 BC. There was a civil war, a fratricidal war, a war amongst the sons of Bindusar. And this lasted for how many years? 4 years. And we are told that Ashoka killed Buddhist sources. Buddhist sources tell us, understand this, Buddhist sources tell us that Ashoka killed 99 of his brothers. He killed 99 of his brothers, spared one called Tissa, and he came to power. He spared one prince, one brother called Tissa. He did not kill Tissa, and he came to power. So he killed 99, spared one, and then came to power, according to Buddhist sources. Right? But Lama Taranatha, the Tibetan monk of the 16th century, tells us that Ashoka killed 6 brothers. Ashoka killed 6 of his brothers, spared one called Tissa, and came to power. Now, if I ask you a very simple question, which seems more realistic? 99 or 6? Obviously 6. What Taranatha has told us. But then the question is, why do the Buddhist sources claim like this? Why do the Buddhist sources, unless, Ashoka would have killed 99 unless he was Magadhira, that movie Magadhira where he kills 100 people. So like that. But then that is okay in movies or in Rajinikanth movies, but not historically. So 6 seems to be a realistic number. Now, why do the Buddhist sources claim like this? Why do the Buddhist sources claim like this? They are trying to highlight the influence Buddhism had on Ashoka. Initially, they say, the Buddhist sources tell us that Ashoka was Chanda Ashoka. He was Chanda Ashoka. Chandashoka. That is, he was a very bloodthirsty tyrant who will kill people like a chicken, without rhyme or reason. So he was Chandashoka, known for his temper and cruelty. So he was called Chandashoka. He was also called Kama Ashoka, always surrounded by women, engaging in sensual pursuits. So he's called Chandashoka, Kama Ashoka. And then he came under the influence of Buddhism. And then he became Dhammashoka. He gave up, he became a good boy, Dhammashoka. So Buddhist sources try to highlight the influence Buddhism had on Ashoka. He was Chandashoka, Kamashoka, and then he became Dhammashoka. He became a good boy. He left everything, including warfare. And that's how Buddhism had a terrific influence on Ashoka. That's what they say, right? Yeah, Kola, you're right. Nikhil, you're also right. So this is what they try to highlight. So we'll come to Bindusar and then come to Ashoka. Just hold on. So Bindusar patronized the Ajivika sect. I told you, Ajivika sect founded by Goshala Maskari Putra. So he patronized Ajivika sect. He's called Amitro Chets in Sanskrit, and the Greek sources call him, he's called Amitra Gata in Sanskrit and Amitro Chets by the Greeks. Lama Taranatha, 16th century Tibetan monk, says that he conquered the land between the two oceans, the two seas, that is South India. Then he sent two ambassadors. One was two ambassadors came to his court. One was Dimachus, sent by the king of Syria, Antiochus I. So this is, Syria is here, a little bit above this. So it's missing in the map. I had put the map, it is slightly missing here. So king of Syria sent Dimachus to the court of Bindusara. Along with Dimachus, he sent sweet wine and dried figs, and an instruction that sophists are not for sale in Greece. So Dimachus came to the court of Bindusar, and Dionysius was sent by the king of Egypt, Ptolemy II, Philadelphus. So these are the coins of Antiochus the first of Syria, Greek coins, and this is the head of Ptolemy II, Philadelphus of Egypt. So Divyavadana, a Tibetan book, tells us that there was a revolt at Takshashila. Takshila. Shushima, the eldest son of Bindusar, was not able to put down that revolt. So therefore, Bindusara sent his another son, Ashoka, who was the governor of Ujjain, to suppress the revolt. And Ashoka successfully quelled it. Around this time, Bindusara died at he died at Patliputra, and all the sons went to Patliputra and began to stake their claim to the throne. There was a civil war which lasted for 4 years, and ultimately Ashoka killed a certain number of his brothers and came to power. And Ashoka is considered to be the greatest of the Mauryas. Samrat Ashok. So probably he looked like this on your screen. We really don't know how he looked, but probably looked like this. So Ashoka. So this civil war lasted for 4 years, 272 to 268 BC, and Ashoka came to power. Mahamamsha, the Buddhist book Mahamamsha, tells us that Ashoka killed 99 of his brothers. 99 of his brothers. He spared one called Tissa. He spared Tissa and he came to power. As Lama Taranatha gives a totally different number. He killed 6 and spared one. And that seems more realistic. So let us talk about Ashoka here, about his family, about Dhamma, what is this Dhamma, about the Kalinga war, etc. You see, Ashoka came to power in 268 BC after the Kalinga war, and he ruled till 232 BC. 268 to 232 BC. Now, you see, 8 years after he came to power, 8 years since he came to power, in the beginning of the 9th year, around 260 to 61 BC, 261 to 60 BC, around 261 or 260 BC, Ashoka attacks Kalinga, which is the old name of Orissa, and he conquers Kalinga. Major rock edict number 13 gives us details about this Kalinga war. 1 lakh people were killed, 1.5 lakh people were taken prisoners, and many times that number perished. That's what it says. And we have been told for many years, we had been told that immediately after the Kalinga War, overnight he converted himself to Buddhism because he had never seen so much of bloodshed, death, destruction, pain, suffering, and it melted the heart of Ashoka, and he converted himself to Buddhism immediately after the Kalinga War. But then we found the Babru Edict. Babru Edict in West Bengal. The Babru Edict tells us that, which is found in West Bengal, tells us that Ashoka converted himself to Buddhism 2.5 years, 2.5 years after the Kalinga War. Not immediately after the Kalinga War, but 2.5 years, 2.5 years after the Kalinga War. Now, and he brought in this concept of Dhamma. So he converted himself to Buddhism and he brought in this concept of Dhamma. Now, what happened between the Kalinga War, between the termination of the Kalinga War and his conversion to Buddhism? 2.5 years, what was he doing? You see here, I'll show you the map. Oh my God. Sorry for that, just hold on. You see here on your screen, this, what you see, there are three colors here. This color is what Chandragupta Maurya conquered. You can see here, this one, the first one. These are the conquests of Chandragupta Maurya. That is up to the river Narmada. He conquers everything up to river Narmada. This one. This is number one. These are the conquests of his grandfather, Ashoka's grandfather, Chandragupta Maurya. This one is the conquest of his father, Bindusar. And Ashoka conquered Kalinga. Third. And three is Ashoka. No? He conquers Kalinga. And the deep south, that is the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, this area, they had acknowledged the overlordship of the Mauryas. So literally the Mauryas were ruling over the whole of India. Now, after Kalinga War, Ashoka did not know what to do. In the sense, if he had to go to war against somebody, against whom will he go to war against? Because everybody was under his control. Everybody had accepted the Mauryas as their overlord, and they were sending tribute to the Mauryan emperor at Patliputra. So there was no question of the Mauryan king going to war against others because everybody was under his control. He never thought of expanding beyond the Mauryan empire. So Ashoka literally did not know what to do. And in this gap of 2.5 years, he brought in this concept of Dhamma. He had to keep his officers and soldiers busy. No, the Mauryas ruled almost the whole of India. So they had a huge bureaucracy. They had a huge army. And they had to be given some job where they are kept busy every day on a daily basis. So 2.5 years after the Kalinga War, he converted himself to Buddhism and brought in this concept of Dhamma. So Dhamma was a very novel, um, novel thing which Ashoka brought into existence. What is Dhamma? In Sanskrit, it is Dharma. In Dhamma in Pali, Dharma in Sanskrit. Dharma in Sanskrit. So here, Dhamma was more ethical and moralistic in nature. It was more about ethics and morals here. Ethics and morals. How a person was supposed to conduct himself in his family and in the society. So he talks about ahimsa, non-violence. He talks about tolerance, religious tolerance. He says people should respect their own, they should respect their parents, they should respect their elders, they should respect their teachers, they should respect people of other religions. That way their own religion will become great. So these are the various aspects he talks about in Dhamma. Then he tells people to avoid evil, like slander, backbiting, slander, talking false, engaging in himsa, violence, etc. and he asked people to adopt virtues, good virtues, like tolerance, right? And then, of course, ahimsa, truth, liberality, etc. So it was more ethical and moralistic in nature. And Ashoka gave, there is a difference between Dhamma and Buddhism. Please understand, there's a difference between Dhamma and Buddhism. Dhamma, you have doctrinal and symbolic differences between Dhamma and Buddhism. Ashoka brought in this symbol called the Dharma Chakra, which consists of 24 spokes. So he said 24 spokes. Imagine these are 24 spokes. 24 spokes. So why 24? He said people should follow Dharma 24 hours in a day. They should not skip Dharma anytime. That should be followed 24 hours in a day. That's why 24 spokes. And he said that if people follow Dhamma, he will guarantee them Swarga. They will reach Swarga. What is Swarga? Heaven. Now, the Buddhist Dharma Chakra has 8 spokes. The Buddhist Dharma Chakra has 8 spokes. 8 spokes denote the Ashtangika Marga of the Buddha. Ashtangika Marga of Lord Buddha. Right? And Buddha never spoke about Swarga. He said, if you follow the eightfold path or Ashtangika Marga, he will guarantee them nirvana. He'll guarantee them nirvana. Right? Something like enlightenment. Whereas Ashoka says, if you follow Dhamma 24 hours in a day, then he will guarantee them that they will reach Swarga, they will reach heaven. So Buddha never spoke about heaven. And then we have a class of officers called Dhamma Mahamattas. Dhamma Mahamattas or Mahamattaras, who were appointed by Ashoka to propagate Dhamma. Here, Buddhism was propagated by the by the Buddhist monks and nuns, the Buddhist bhikshu and bhikkhuni or bhikshunis were the ones whose duty was to spread the teachings of the Buddha. Here, a class of officers called Dhamma Mahamattaras were appointed by Ashoka to spread Dhamma. So there is difference between Dhamma and Buddhism. But then common people like you and me got confused. The tenets of the Dhamma, the teachings of the Dhamma were so similar to Buddhism that people got confused between Dhamma and Buddhism. And Buddhism became very, very popular after that. And Dhamma died along with Ashoka. Did you understand? Dhamma died along with Ashoka. Buddhism became popular because people thought Dhamma is equal to Buddhism. It is the same as Buddhism. It was slightly different compared to that of Buddhism. But people mistook Dhamma to be equal to Buddhism. So just as Din-i-Ilahi died with Akbar, Dhamma had died with Ashoka. Din-i-Ilahi, Akbar comes much, much later. Dhamma died along with Ashoka, right? So this is about Dhamma, Ashoka's Dhamma. He sent missionaries to spread Dhamma, and Dhamma Mahamattaras were sent to different parts of the country and outside to spread Buddhism and Dhamma. You have Ashoka sending 2 of his children, Mahendra and Sangamitra, with a sapling of the original people tree to Sri Lanka. So they introduced Buddhism in Sri Lanka, the children of Ashoka, and they planted that sapling there, which even now survives. The descendant of that tree, the sapling became a tree. So the descendant of that tree still now survives in Sri Lanka, whereas the tree under which Lord Buddha, the original people tree, under which Buddha had attained nirvana, was cut off by Shashanka of Gauda, the king of Bengal, who was a Shaivite, who was a Shiva worshipper. Now, before Ashoka died, he divided the empire into 2 parts. Western part, eastern part. Western part under Ujjain, capital was Ujjain, and the eastern part, the capital was Pataliputra. So western part he kept under his son Kunala. So Kunala was a son of Ashoka. He was a son of Ashoka. And eastern part he kept under his grandson Dasharatha. Dasharatha was the grandson of Ashoka. Now The son of Kunala was a man called Samprati. Samprati. So he was a son of Kunala, and we are told that both Kunala and Dasharatha died at the same time. So both Kunala and Dasharatha died at the same time. As a result, this Samprati united both these regions for a brief period of time. So he united both these regions for a brief, around 223 BC. He united both these areas and he jointly ruled over those areas. Samprati was a follower of Jainism. He was a promoter of Jainism. But after Samprati, we have weak successors like Salisuka, Devavarman, Shatadhanvan, and ultimately Brihadratha. So the last ruler was a person called Brihadratha. He was unpopular among the people as well as the army, and he had a very ambitious commander called Pushyamitra Sunga. So he was a Senapati of Brihadratha. So Pushyamitra Sunga was a very ambitious general, took advantage of the unpopularity of Brihadratha, killed Brihadratha, and usurped the throne and established the Sunga dynasty. This was the end of the Mauryas. So this is about Ashoka and the later Mauryas. We'll come to that here, come back here on your screen. So let us talk about Ashoka, 268 to 232 BC. Now, you see, why is Ashoka considered to be one of the greatest? He's called Ashoka the Great. So why was he considered great, or why is he considered great? Because he is considered to be the first king in the history of India, history of the world. First king in the history of the world to have given up warfare after having conquered everything. First king in the history of the world to have given up warfare after having conquered everything. This is what the classical historians, the historians of yesteryears have had told us. Now, modern historians have pondered over this. Is it true? Did he really give up whatever he had conquered? And we have come to the conclusion that it is not so. You see, what did he conquer after all? You see here on your screen, we have seen this. His grandfather had done all the donkey's job. He had conquered everything from Afghanistan, parts of Afghanistan to the river Narmada. His father had conquered South India, Bindusara. Only one tiny area remained to be conquered, that is Kalinga. And in the beginning of the 9th year, Ashoka conquered Kalinga. After that, he had nothing else to conquer because everything was under his control. Right? So he only had to maintain. And again, you cannot take away credit from Ashoka. Even to maintain such a huge empire, you require capacity. You require capability, and Ashoka had it with him. And that is the reason why he thought out of the box. He thought of Dhamma, and through Dhamma, he kept his officers and soldiers busy. Okay, so that they had a direction, a focus, and almost for about 29 years, we don't have any wars because after Kalinga, Ashoka did not fight any wars at all till he died. So for about 29 years, we don't hear of any wars. But then the army was used to maintain law and order over this huge, extensive empire of his. So, so here we have the. So Ashoka, let us look at the family members of Ashoka, wives and children of Ashoka, other aspects of his rule. Asandi Mitra, his chief queen. So Asandi Mitra was his chief queen. When she died, he made another queen his chief queen. She was Tissarakshita. So Tissarakshita became the chief queen after the death of Asandi Mitra. And we are told that over a period of time, Ashoka became fanatic as regards Buddhism. Day and night, he's talking about Buddhism, thinking about Buddhism, etc. And Tissarakshita got very irritated with her husband. So she wanted to teach him a lesson. And we are told that Tissarakshita put some poison on her fingers. And she tried to harm the Bodhi tree. She tried to scratch the Bodhi tree with those poisonous nails of hers. So she was the one who tried to destroy the Bodhi tree at Gaya, under which the Lord Buddha had attained Nirvana. Tissarakshita. Third queen is Padmavati. She was the mother of Kunala. Kunala later was blinded on the orders of Tissarakshita. Tissarakshita did not want Kunala to succeed to the throne of Ashoka. So therefore, Tissarakshita got Kunala blinded. got Kunala blinded as she did not want Kunala to succeed to the throne after Ashoka, right? And that is a story of almost all the generations, all the dynasties, Nikhil. That is a story of monarchies. You have very capable monarchs succeeded by less capable ones, and then the empire collapses, and somebody else comes to power. So we'll come back here. Vidisha Mahadevi. So Ashoka, I believe, when he was the governor of Ujjain, he fell in love with this merchant's daughter called Vidisha. She was from Vidisha Mahadevi. She was from Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh. So from her, he got two children, that is Mahendra and Sangamitra. And these two children of Ashoka were sent to Sri Lanka to propagate Buddhism with a sapling of the original peepal tree. So they were the children of Vidisha Mahadevi, Mahendra and Sangamitra. Then we have another queen, Karuvaki or Kauruvaki, and her son was Tivara. Now look here, Ashoka had many sons, many children. We have seen that, Jaloka, Charumati, Mahendra, Sangamitra, etc. And he might have had many more. We don't know. But then, among the children, among the various wives and children of Ashoka, we have the name of only one queen and one son mentioned in the Ashokan edicts. And that queen is Karuvaki or Kauruvaki and her son Tivara. So only one queen and one son are mentioned in the edicts of Ashoka. That queen is Kauruvaki and her son Tivara. And they are mentioned in the Allahabad inscription. And therefore, Allahabad inscription is also called the Queen's Edict. It is also called the Queen's Edict. Right? So none of the family members of Ashoka are mentioned except Karuvaki and Tivara. Are you there with me? All of you? Clear? Clear? Can you raise your hands? All clear? Can I move on? Okay. Then we come to other family members. Jaloka. So according to the Raja Tarangini, Jaloka was a son of Ashoka who became the ruler after Ashoka. So they come to Kalhana's Raja Tarangini, the history of Kashmir. Jaloka was a son of Ashoka who became the ruler after Ashoka. And Charumati, she was supposedly a daughter of Ashoka who married a noble of Nepal and settled down there. So these are the various family members of Ashoka. Then the Kalinga War was fought by him, as we all know. Kalinga War 261 or 260 BC. So the eighth regnal year, that is, he had ruled for 8 years, and in the beginning of the 9th year of his rule, he attacked Kalinga. We had the 13th major rock edict, which gives us information about the Kalinga War. 1 lakh people were killed, 1.5 lakh people were taken prisoners, and many times that number perished, he says. And we are told that 2.5 years after the Kalinga War, he converted himself to Buddhism, and he took up the concept of Dhamma. So this is supposedly the date of his conversion, October the 14th, 265 BC. And he began to propagate Dhamma. So this is the Kalinga War, 261 or 260 BC, right? And Ashoka says in his inscriptions that he wants to give up Bheri Gosha for Dhamma Gosha, the sound of war drums. He wants to give up the sound of war drums. Bheri Gosha. Gosha is sound and Bheri is war drums. So instead of war drums, he wants to hear the sound of Dhamma. So he brought in this concept of Dhamma. It was an ethical code of conduct, more moralistic, ethical in nature, how a person is supposed to behave himself in his family, in the society. So it talks about religious tolerance, non-violence, adopt good virtues, abandon evil ones. He created a class of officers called Dhamma Mahamattaras to propagate Dhamma, and he sent different Dhamma Mahamattaras to different parts of India. As you can see on your screen, Majjhima was sent to the Himalayan region, Majjhima. Majjhautika, Kashmir and Gandhara. Mahadeva, Mahisha Mandala, that is Mysore region. Rakshita, Banavasi, Karnataka region. Then Yona Dharma Rakshita, Aparanta, that is Konkan coast, that is where your Goa and all are there. And Mahadharma Rakshita, Maharashtra. So these are the various Dhamma Mahamattaras who were sent to different parts of the Mauryan Empire. Then we are told that by the Kandahar bilingual inscription. Kandahar inscription is in Greek and Aramaic language and script. So that is bilingual in nature. It tells us that Dhamma had a positive influence on the people of Kandahar. They gave up fishing and adopted farming. And Dharma Chakra, having 24 spokes, became the symbol of Ashoka's Dhamma. This is the Dharma Chakra of Ashoka, and our government, after independence, adopted this as on our national flag, and also it is a national emblem of India. Okay, national flag and national emblem. We have Ashoka's Dharma Chakra, 24 spokes. Now, as I told you, before he died, Ashoka divided the empire into two parts: western part with Ujjain as capital, and eastern part with Pataliputra as capital. Western part came under his son Kunala, eastern part under his grandson Dasharatha, and the son of Kunala was Samprati, who united both these parts briefly after the death of Kunala and Dasharatha. But after Samprati, we have weak rulers, and ultimately Brihadratha, the last ruler, was killed by his commander Pushyamitra Sunga, who established the Sunga dynasty. This was the end of the Mauryas. Probably Hemalata is saying is the concept of Akhanda Bharat came from this era. As we can see, undivided India is ruled by King Ashoka. Probably, you see, Ashoka, Mauryas were the first. I think we'll come to this, understand this. Mauryas were the first rulers of India to establish a scientific defensive frontier. They were the first rulers of India to establish the scientific defensive frontier. That is where the natural frontiers of India end. That's called scientific defensive frontier. So when you conquer these four areas, you are supposed to establish a scientific defensive frontier. The conquest of Kabul, Kandahar, Sindh, and Balochistan. So when you conquer these four areas, automatically you establish what is known as the scientific defensive frontier. That is where the natural boundaries of India end. So the first people to achieve this were the Mauryas. They were the first to achieve this, the Mauryas. The second in our history was Emperor Akbar. So Emperor Akbar was able to conquer these four areas. So he was the second to establish the scientific defensive frontier. And the third and the last time was done by the English East India Company. The English East India Company were able to conquer all these four areas. So, if you call scientific defensive frontier has Akhanda Bharat, Hemlata, probably you're right. That they were the first to establish the so-called scientific defensive frontier. Let us use the word scientific defensive frontier instead of Akhanda Bharat, right? Okay, so welcome. So Mauryas were the first to conquer these four areas where the natural boundaries of India end. So I've given you all the explanation. Let us talk about Mauryan administration. So here all the details of Mauryan administration are found in Kautilya's Arthashastra, the Edicts of Ashoka, and of course Megasthenes' Indica. So these are the three main sources of information for the study of Mauryan administration: Kautilya's Arthashastra, Megasthenes' Indica, the book called Indica, and Ashokan Edicts. And the king was supreme here. All the powers were in the hands of the king. He was the highest legislative, executive, and judicial authority. So, and Mauryas had a strong centralized administration. So, what is the reason as to why the Mauryas collapsed? I told you it was top heavy. The first three Mauryas were very, very capable men. All the power was in their hands. But unfortunately, after Ashoka, we have weak successors, except Samprati, who showed some promise. But after Samprati, we have weak successors. They were not able to hold the Mauryan Empire together. You require a very strong person, a very capable person to run a huge empire like that of the Mauryas. Unfortunately, the successors of Ashoka were not so, and therefore the Mauryan Empire collapsed. Right? So it was a strong centralized administrative system. Now you see here on your screen. So I have made charts for you. Look, understand this. The empire was divided into provinces. Okay. So what are the important provinces under the Mauryas? northern province, Uttarapatha. So Hindi में ना उत्तर दक्षिण पूर्व पश्चिम, like that, उत्तर दक्षिण पूर्व पश्चिम. So Uttarapatha, northern province. What was the capital? Takshashila. Takshashila was the capital of the northern province, Uttarapatha. Dakshinapatha, Suvarnagiri. Dakshinapatha was the southern province with Suvarnagiri as capital. Then Tosali or Dhauli, eastern province with Kalinga as capital. Kalinga was the capital of the eastern province, Tosali or Dhauli. Then Avantipatha, western province with Ujjain as capital, Avantipatha. Then Prachapatha, the central part was called Prachapatha with Pataliputra as capital. So Mauryan Empire was divided into provinces, north, south, east, west, and the central part. And whatever I have mentioned, in yellow, that is the capital: Takshashila, Patliputra, Suvarnagiri, etc. Right now, provinces were subdivided into districts. Districts into intermediate level, like a taluk, and taluk further into villages. We cannot use the word taluk. This is just to make you understand that I use that word taluk. Your Mauryas never use that word taluk. It is an intermediate level of administration between the district and the village. And you have officers posted in the provinces, in the districts, etc. We'll discuss about that now. Now look here on your screen. Look at your screen. Empire was divided. So look at here. If you draw arrow mark like this, empire was divided into provinces. Provinces subdivided into districts. Districts into intermediate level, and then you have a village. Now, empire was divided into provinces. In every province, understand this, there was a Kumara or an Aryaputra. There was a Kumara or an Aryaputra appointed. Now, who is a Kumara? Kumara was a governor. He was a son of a king. So he's called Kumara. His designation would be called a Kumara if he was a son of a king. For example, Ashoka was the Kumara of Ujjain. Ashoka was the governor of Ujjain, Kumara of Ujjain. Similarly, Susima was the governor or Kumara of Takshashila. So they were the sons of Bindusara, therefore they were called Kumaras. Now, if a member of the royal family was appointed, he was not the son of a king, but he was a distant relative of the king, maybe the king's wife's sister's son or brother's son, etc. So he belonged to the royal family, but he was not the king's son. Then that governor would be called Aryaputra. So persons of royal blood. So in a province, either you have a Kumara or an Aryaputra. Kumara was the son of a king, and Aryaputra belonged to the royal family. He was not the son of a king. Are you there with me? So this is the provincial level. Below came the district. So provinces were subdivided into districts. Districts are called aharas. Districts are called aharas. There were three levels of officers: Pradeshika, Rajuka, Yukta. Pradeshika, Rajuka, and Yukta. So what was the duty of the Pradeshika? He was the district head in charge of law and order. LO is law and order. So L and O, that is law and order in short, law and order, and revenue collection. So Pradeshika was in charge of law and order and revenue collection. He was a district head. Rajuka, in charge of rural administration and justice. In charge of rural administration and justice. And he was equivalent to the modern day district collector. So the equivalent officer of the modern day district collector in the Mauryan period was the Rajuka. And then you have Yukta, who were secretarial staff, who did clerical jobs. So Pradeshika, Rajuka, Yukta. So remember this, Rajuka was the equivalent of the modern day district collector. Below the district came the intermediate level of administration, group of villages. And you have two officers there, Sthanika and a Gopa. Sthanika was the tax collector at that intermediate level, and Gopa was the accountant. And Gramika was the village headman. Gramika was the village headman. So you could just strike off this agronomy. So that is wrong. Agronomy actually is officer in charge of construction of road, building of roads, according to Indica. So just strike off that. Have a struck off that. I forgot to strike it off. So I have overlooked that. So please strike that off. So Gramika was the village headman. We'll talk about agronomy later. Clear? Hello, all of you. So the Rajuka was the equivalent of the modern day district collector. Please raise your hands. Can I move on? Yes. So these are the various administrative division of the Mauryan Empire. Then we come to central administration. Uh, at the central level, in the central administration, we have 4 levels of officers in a sequential order. In terms of their seniority, Tirthas come first. So again, draw a arrow mark like this. So Tirthas come first, then Adhyaksha, then Mahamatta, then Amatya. So Tirthas, Adhyakshas, Mahamatta, Amatya. So let us, who are these Tirthas? Tirthas were the highest category of officers. They were apart from the Council of Ministers and they formed the inner council. I repeat, Tirthas, highest category of officers, very close to the emperor. They were apart from the Council of Ministers. So the king had a separate Council of Ministers. So Tirthas were apart from the Council of Ministers. They formed the inner council, the core group of ministers who were very, very close to the emperor, and they will give him counsel. Many things are discussed within that Tirtha, within that inner council. Totally, there were 18 Tirthas. So, highest category of officials, 18 Tirthas, form the inner council. Okay. So, who are the important Tirthas? Important Tirthas. You have the Mantrin, who was the chief minister, Purohita, chief priest, Senapati, commander in chief, CNC is commander in chief, Yuvaraja was a crown prince. So these 4 were the highest category of Tirthas. Mantrin, Purohita, Senapati, Yuvaraja. Highest functionaries amongst Tirthas. Then we have other Tirthas, Dauvarika, in charge of the palace. So he was an officer in charge of the palace, Dauvarika. Samaharta. So whenever there is a problem of words like this, you divide it into 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 so that you can easily remember them. Samaharta, chief collector of taxes. So he was a chief tax collector. Sannidhata, treasury chief. Prasastri, IG of prison, inspector general of prisons. Antarvesika, in charge of harem. Now what is a harem? Where women are kept. Harem. Antarvesika. For example, you see, you have somebody who wants to curry favors from the king. He wants to impress the king, please the king, and get some favors from him. So he'll want to please the king. So he might bring, exotic food, different types of fruits, very unique fruits, some drinks, alcohol, and then a lot of wealth and some beautiful women to please the king. So the king will not take those women into the palace. Already he has a queen, and her children, the chief queen's children, will become the next rulers, next ruler, right? So these women will be kept in the harem, and there used to be transgenders. Those days, those CCTV camera was there. So therefore, you have transgenders or eunuchs who were appointed in the harem to supervise those women, keep an eye on those women and provide them whatever comforts and facilities they require. And the king would visit the harem whenever he felt like. So the officer who was in charge of the harem was the Antarvesika, a chief of harem. Nayaka was a city constable. Vyavaharika, chief judge. Vyavaharika. Dandapal was a police chief. Antapal, chief of frontier defense, in charge of the border areas. So I have given you some important tirthas. Out of the 18, I have mentioned 13 of them. So these are right. So these are the important tirthas. These are names for Rajasthan. Rehan. What names you are talking about, Rehan? This is what is there in the Arthashastra of Kautilya. So this is there in the Arthashastra of Kautilya. All these details are given in Kautilya. Purohit. Yeah, that is there. Purohit is common. Purohit is in Sanskrit. Purohit. So the Arthashastra is in Sanskrit. So therefore, Purohit. So the tirthas. So the totally 18 tirthas. Okay, then we come to Adhyakshas. Okay, so Adhyakshas. So we had 27 departments with 26 Adhyakshas. So below the Tirthas came the Adhyakshas, 27 departments with 26 Adhyakshas. They mostly performed economic functions and some military duties, mostly economic functions, some military duties, 27 departments with 26 Adhyakshas, which the only department without an Adhyaksha was the fisheries department. The only department without an Adhyaksha was the fisheries department. Let us look at the important Adhyaksha. All these officers end with the name Adhyaksha, Adhyaksha. So mark, look at it on your screen. Akara Adhyaksha. Akara means mines and minerals. Akara Adhyaksha. Akapala Adhyaksha. Accounts. Kupya Adhyaksha. Forest produce. Lakshana mint. Panya Adhyaksha. Trade and commerce. Pautava Adhyaksha or Tulaman Adhyaksha. Weights and measures. Sita Adhyaksha. Crown lands. Shulka. Customs and tolls. So what is Sita Adhyaksha? Sita Adhyaksha is crown land. What is crown land? Crown land is that land where all the proceeds will go to the king. So let us say this is the kingdom. This is the kingdom and of a king, and this is the crown land. So this is called crown land, let us say, a very fertile area. And whatever is grown here will go to the king directly. It is not taxed. It will go to the king. That's called crown land. Then Shulka, customs and tolls. Sura, excise, that is liquor. Sutra, handlooms. Vivita Adhyaksha, pasture lands, grasslands. Samstha, markets, checked wrong practices. Pattana Adhyaksha, ports. So these are the various Adhyakshas. The only Adhyaksha, only department without an Adhyaksha was the fisheries department. Are you clear till here, all of you? So we have Tirthas, Adhyakshas, then come Mahamattas. Mahamattas. Third category of officials, they performed both economic and military duties. Mahamattas, high-ranking officials, irrespective of the duties assigned to them. So they could be assigned any duties, both civil and military. Arthashastra uses this term in the sense of a minister, Mahamatta. So let us look at the important Mahamattas. Vaharika Mahamatta. So everything ends with Mahamatta here. Vaharika Mahamatta, judicial officer. Sena Naya Mahamatta, military officer. Dona Mahapaka, assessment officer. Dhamma Mahamatta, officer for Dhamma. Sabatakka Mahamatta, chief minister. Amta Mahamatta, officer in charge of frontier areas. Itichaka Mahamatta, in charge of women or harem, officer in charge of women or harem. Itichaka Mahamatta. So these are the important Mahamattas. Then we come to Amatyas. Amatyas, or they were secretaries equal to the modern day secretaries, and they functioned in both administrative and judicial capacity. So Rajuka is the modern day equal to the modern day district collector. Amatya is equal to the modern day secretary. Secretaries are heads of departments. So secretaries, Amatyas, function in administrative and judicial capacities. So these are the important officers at the central level. Remember them in a sequential order. They will not ask you all these details in the sense that they might ask you match the following. Already they might have matched the designation against the officer, and then they might ask you whether it's the correct match. They can ask you like that. But then they might ask you to arrange them in a following manner. Tirthas, Adhyakshas, Mahamattas, Amatyas. From top to down it is like that, and from bottom to top, ascending, descending order, remember that. Ascending and descending order. Amatya, Mahamatta, Adhyaksha, Tirtha. Then we come to other aspects of Mauryan administration, judicial administration. You see, king was the highest judge, highest judicial court was the king's court. And we have law, which was divided into civil and criminal. So civil courts were called Dharmastya, and criminal courts, Kantaka Shodhana. These were criminal courts. Megasthenes tells us that people had high morals, and that's why we have less crimes and thefts. So less crimes and thefts took place because of high moral values of the Mauryan people. Now, Megasthenes is wrong here. The reason why there was less theft and crimes was because of a very severe penal code, very strict code of criminal code. So that was the main reason, not because people had high moral values. Harsh punishments were given to people who committed thefts and crime. For example, if somebody robbed more than 40 panas, the punishment was death. And less than 40 panas, it was mutilation of limbs. Mutilation of limbs. Cutting of fingers, wrist, leg, feet, disgorging of eyes, ears were common. So therefore, people were very, very afraid, and therefore we see very less crimes committed, very less thefts are there, not because of high moral values as put by Megasthenes. Then capital punishment was given for petty crimes. What is capital punishment? Death sentence. I told you. Less than 40 panas, mutilation. More than 40 panas, they were killed. And trial by ordeal was there. That is called divine test. What is trial by ordeal? Let's say there's a suspect. There's a servant called A in somebody's house. And this servant called A is accused of having robbed some jewels in that person's house. But there's no proof. It's only an accusation made against the servant called A. So the judge will say, we will lay a bed of hot burning coal. You walk on that. If nothing happens to your feet, then you are innocent. This is called trial by ordeal. Or we will give you some poison to drink. If nothing happens to you after drinking, that means you're innocent. So this is called trial by ordeal or divine tests, right? So this was there. Then espionage department was under the Mahamatya Pasarpa. Mahamatya Pasarpa. He was the head of the spy department. And Kautilya, Megasthenes and Ashokan edicts have different names for these spies. You see on your screen, Kautilya calls these spies as Guda Purushas. Ashokan edicts calls them as Pativegadakas and Pulasinis. And Megasthenes calls them as overseers, all referring to spies. So you see here, so it was headed by the Mahamatya Pasarpa. So Megasthenes calls these spies as overseers. Ashokan edicts calls them Pativedakas and Polisanis. And of course, we have Kautilya who calls them as Guda Purushas. So all referring to spies. And there were different types of spies, I believe. We had stationary spy. So stationary spy. So he is staying in one place. So he's called Smastha. Smastha was the stationary spy. Then Sanchari. Sanchari was the touring spy. He will tour from one place to another place and then he'll collect information. Touring spy. And Vishakanyas. These are all details given by Kautilya. Vishakanyas. Literally poisonous girls. These girls, they were spies from a young age. They're good looking girls. They're spies. And from a young age, a small dose of poison was administered to these girls. So as they grow up, they have high resistance to poison. And they were also spies. And she's good looking. And let us say the Vishakanya is told that so-and-so is a neighboring, he is a spy from a neighboring kingdom. So she will keep an eye on that person. She will befriend that person on some grounds. She will befriend him as if it's an accident and they become friends. And then when she finds an opportunity, she'll kill him. So all these details are given by Kautilya in his Arthashastra. And women have been used as spies from ancient times. If you see Vishakanyas, Kautilya talks about it. Even during the First World and Second World War, women spies were used and they did a very great job. Very good looking women, but actually they were spies. So that was another thing which we need to understand. Then let us talk about Megasthenesis. Now, Hemalata, that is called trial by ordeal, divine tests. So these type of tests were undertaken. It is not scientific. It cannot justify it. I know that, but then they were all done during those days. So let us talk about the information given by Megasthenes. So Megasthenes, what are the various information given by him about the Mauryan Empire? You see, Megasthenes was the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator to the court of Chandragupta Maurya. So he was the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, Megasthenes. He writes a book called Indica, and we have seen this. Indica has been lost, but contemporary Greek and Roman writers quote from the Indica. So what do we know about the Mauryan administration from Megasthenes' Indica? Number one, he talks about the Mauryan military administration. He talks about the Mauryan military. He says it was run by a military board. The Mauryan military was run by a military board consisting of 30 members, divided into six committees of 5 members each. 6 into 5 is equal to 30. It was run by a board of 30 members, divided into 6 committees. So these are the committees, 6 committees, and each committee has 5 members. So 6 into 5 is equal to 30 members. And each of these committees were in charge of a particular aspect of the army. Like, for example, we have the Chaduranga Sena, that is, you have the infantry, the cavalry, war elephants, chariots, then navy, and war commissariat, that is logistics, war commissariat, which provided logistics to the other wings. So infantry, cavalry, war elephants, chariots, navy, war commissariat. So my Mauryan military board was run by a committee of 6 members, divided to 5 members each. It was run by a board of 30 members, divided into 6 committees of 5 members each, and each committee was in charge of a particular wing of the Mauryan military. Then he talks about the Mauryan the city of Patliputra, how the city of Pataliputra was run. And historians believe that probably other cities in the Mauryan Empire were run on the lines on which Patliputra was run. He says again that Patliputra was run by a city council. He calls the city council as Astynomoi. City council is called Astynomoi. Astynomoi. He says it was run by a city council consisting of 30 members, divided into 6 committees of 5 members each. And each committee was in charge of a particular aspect of city administration of Patliputra. Like, for example, registration of births and deaths, entertainment of foreigners, public sale of goods, etc. So you can see here on your screen, industry and crafts, entertainment of foreigners, registration of births and deaths, trade and commerce, weights and measures, manufactured goods, and the 6th committee dealt with collection of taxes on articles sold, 1/10 of the purchase price. And you see, Mauryas were the earliest to bring about a census. They were the earliest to introduce census in the world. And what is the purpose of census? What's the purpose of census? So they were the earliest to conduct census, the Mauryas. What's the purpose of a census? Hello? Gia, to know about your population. Any other better answer? Policy making for welfare. Okay. So this is to allocate scarce resources for policy making. Very good. For allocation of resources, scarce resources. So you will come to know the number of deaths and births. You can allocate scarce resources. Okay. Apart from count of population, it is for that purpose, allocation of scarce resources. So these are the various committees which dealt with the administration of the city of Patliputra. And historians believe that probably other cities in the Mauryan Empire were run on similar lines. We have the head of the city administration was the mayor. You understand this? He was the mayor, equal to the modern day mayor. He was called Nagarika. So he was the head of the city administration, Nagarika, assisted by two officers, Stanika and Gopa. So Nagarika can be considered as the equivalent of the modern day mayor, equal to the modern day mayor. Rakshin was the police commissioner. He was in charge of law and order, equal to the modern day police commissioner, Rakshin. Okay, so remember these Mauryan designation of officers. Rajuka was the collector, equal to the modern day collector. Then Amatya was equal to the modern day secretary. Nagarika was the equivalent to the modern day mayor, and Rakshin was equal to the modern day police commissioner. So these are the equivalent names. Okay, of these are the Mauryan names and equivalent designations. Then, Megasthenes talks about Mauryan military administration. He talks about the city administration of Patliputra. Then Megasthenes gives us information about the Mauryan society. He talks about the Mauryan society. So on your screen. So he says it was he classifies Mauryan society into 7 groups. On your screen, philosophers, cultivators. Philosophers are Brahmins, Brahmanas, cultivators, who are doing agriculture, soldiers, herdsmen, those who are herding the cattle, artisans, engaged in small scale and cottage industries, magistrates, and councillors. So he mistook occupation for caste. So he divides the Mauryan society into 7 classes, and he mistook occupation for caste, right? And he fails to mention the traders and the merchants. He failed to mention traders and merchants, though this is mostly an economic division of Mauryan society than social division. So as I told you, he mistook occupation for caste. Okay, right? Then Megasthenes informs that slavery and usury did not exist in India. He says slavery was absent in India, and usury, what is usury? Money lending. Money lending was also absent, he says. That is called usury. Now, was slavery, how do we know this slavery was existing in the Mauryan Empire? Anybody? Slavery and usury did not exist, he says, but we know that slavery existed. What is the proof we have? Anybody can answer that? What is the proof we have that slavery existed? 5th Rock Edict of Ashoka. Okay, Jia, very good. That is, he says, treat your servants and slaves in a humane manner. Treat, what is the other proof we have apart from the Edict of Ashoka? Slaves and servants should be treated in a humane manner. And then remember the Kalinga War. 1.5 lakh people were 1 lakh people were killed. 1.5 lakh people were taken prisoners. What did Ashoka do with these 1.5 lakh prisoners of war? Obviously, they were reduced to slavery. They were used in the extension and intensification of agriculture. The Kalinga War also talks about slavery. And of course, Arthashastra makes a mention of slavery. Vishti was forced labor. So Vishti is forced labor. So that is, nothing was paid to these laborers. That's called Vishti, forced labor. So he is again a slave, obviously, because nothing is paid to him. So slavery existed during the Mauryan period. But then why did Megasthenes fail to notice slavery in the Mauryan Empire? Because we in India treat our slaves in a humane manner. We give them boarding and lodging. We used to give them boarding and lodging facilities. Unlike the Greeks and the Romans in ancient times who used to treat their slaves in a very inhuman manner, we used to treat them in a much more humane manner. And therefore, he failed to notice the institution of or practice of slavery. Usury also existed, but he fails to notice that usury is money lending. The rate of interest on money borrowed varied from minimum 15% to a maximum of 60% per annum. 60% is a huge amount of interest on borrowed loan. Let's say there's a merchant, an international merchant, who will borrow a huge amount of money as a loan from a money lender, and he's going abroad by the sea during those days. There's no guarantee that that person might come back alive. He might get caught in a storm in the sea, and he might die. His ship might get capsized. So therefore, they were charged huge amount of interest on borrowed money, minimum 15% to maximum 60% per annum. Then Megasthenes says there were no famines in India. Again, he is incorrect. We know that famines existed. We have the Sohagaura and the Mahastan inscription, which talk about famine relief measures undertaken by the government of Chandragupta Maurya. We know about the famine which took place during the time of Chandragupta Maurya, which resulted in monks, Jain monks, migrating towards South India. So famines did exist during the Mauryan period, but he fails to notice that. Then he says low crime rate and high moral values. Again, a very low crime rate was not because of high moral values, but because of a harsh penal code. The punishment was very, very severe or strict. So these are the various information we get from Megasthenes' account. Um, then we have to discuss about Mauryan society, economy. Okay, so can we finish this chapter and then go for a lunch break? Is it fine with you, or you want to go for a lunch break right away? It's already 1. Can we finish this chapter and go for the lunch break? I'm asking you, all of you students, say something. Finish and go. Gia says finish and go. Do all of you agree with that? Most of you? Can we finish? Finish. Okay. Good. So let us finish this chapter and then go for a lunch break. So we have discussed about Megasthenes. Then we come to Mauryan society. So what was happening in the Mauryan society? Obviously, the Chaturvarna system was not functioning smoothly. The Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. This is the Chaturvarna system. Fourfold Varna system was not functioning smoothly. Why? Because of rapid economic changes. Rapid economic changes were taking place. Please understand, Mauryas were ruling almost the whole of India. The whole of India was ruled by them. They brought law and order throughout the country. And when you have law and order, trade and commerce flourishes. Trade and commerce flourishes, right? And therefore, it was also lucrative for the Vaishyas to take up trade and commerce instead of agriculture. So, large number of Vaishyas, instead of agriculture, they took to trade and commerce. So, there was shortage of laborers on the land. So, therefore, the Mauryan state encouraged Shudras to take to agriculture to supplement the shortage of labor. That is number 1. Of course, we have reduction of gaps between the Vaishyas and the Shudras for that reason. I told you, Vaishyas took to trade and commerce on a large scale. They abandoned agriculture because agriculture was not found to be lucrative, profitable. So here, who will work on the land? Who is going to produce food for the population? Therefore, the Mauryan government encouraged Shudras to take to agriculture. So a lot of Shudras began to do agriculture. That resulted in their economic condition improving. So they were given wages. So their economic status improved, but their social status remained the same. Right? So there's a reduction of gap between the Vaishyas and the Shudras. That is economic gap, not social gap. Right? Then we have improvement in the economic position of Shudras, rise of heterodox sects, that is Jainism, Buddhism, Charvaka, Ajivika sect, etc. They became very popular, and the Brahmanas made the Vedic society rigid. They made the rules of the Vedic society very, very rigid. Now, please understand, many foreigners came to India during the Mauryan period. We have seen Greek and Roman writers have come, Megasthenes came, a lot of foreigners were there in the Mauryan society. And many of these foreigners will marry Indian women. And the progeny born to them have to be allotted a place in the society. So father is a foreigner, mother is an Indian. And then you have a mixed breed where the children, some of them might look like the father, some of them look like the mother, and some of them look like both. But then father is a foreigner, mother is an Indian, and where to allot a place for this mixed breed, that is the progeny or the children born to such mixed races in the society. So initially, the societal rules were made very, very rigid by the Brahmanas. They did not want to allot any position to these mixed races in our society. And that is the reason why you have Ashoka speaking about dharma, tolerance towards each other's religions and sects. And later, of course, the Brahmanas relaxed these rules. They gave them the status of second-class Kshatriyas. The progeny born to such mixed races were given the status of second-class Kshatriya such. right? So Dhamma was brought by him to bring about stability, order, peace in the society. We hear of a lot of friction and tension in the society. As regards the status of women, we have mixed opinion given. We know that Megasthenes says they acted as bodyguards, spies, um, palace guards, etc. There was permission for widow remarriage and divorce, according to Megasthenes. Brahminical literature allots a very low status to women. Buddhist literature treats them in a very considerate manner. There was prevalence of slavery. Forced labor was there. Forced labor is called Vishti. And the officer in charge of forced labor was Vishti Vandaka. Vishti Vandaka was the officer in charge of forced labor. In charge of forced labor. Vishti Vandaka, officer in charge of forced labor. Existence of Hinaja outcasts, that is, those who were outside the premises of the village, the Chandalas or the Hinaja or the outcasts. So we have evidence of existence of Hinaja or outcasts, right? Then economy. So you see, the Mauryas ruled almost the entire country. They had a huge bureaucracy and a huge army, and you require money, salary to pay these officers and soldiers. So the state, Mauryan state, took a proactive role in running the economic affairs of the kingdom of the empire. So it engaged in trade and commodity production, and it controlled almost all the economic activities, right? New settlements were founded, new areas were founded, decaying ones were rejuvenated. Then Shudras were encouraged to take to farming. I told you because Vaishyas had taken to trade and commerce because it was found more profitable. So there was a shortage of labor on the lands. So Shudras were encouraged to take to agriculture. So their economic position improved. Arthashastra also talks about slaves being engaged in farming activities, right? And then of course, Bhaga was the king's share. Land main source of income for the king was the land revenue, 1/4 to 1/6, 1/4 to 1/6 of the gross produce. Then Mauryas also collected other taxes like the Sena Bhakta. What is Sena Bhakta? When the army is passing through a village, the people of that village were supposed to pay taxes to that army. So tax collected from people for the army, Sena Bhaktam. Pranaya was the emergency tax. Vartani was the road tax. Nishkramya, export duty. Vishti, forced labor. So forced labor was sort of an income for the king, income for the state, because the government was saving money. They were not paying anything to those forced laborers. So it was in a way an income for the king or the government. Then Arthashastra mentions various sources of income to the king, like for example from land, mines, minerals, forests, roads, cattle, etc. Arthashastra also speaks about a water tax, 1/5 to 1/3 of the produce. Water tax, then you have monopoly of the state in certain aspects. Nobody was allowed to manufacture these things. Mining and armor and weapon making, mining, liquor brewing, manufacturing of liquor, shipbuilding, all these were state monopoly. Mining, armor and weapon making, brewing of liquor, shipbuilding. And the Royal Highway went from Takshashila in Pakistan to Patliputra, Patna. So Takshashila in Pakistan to Pataliputra, your modern day Patna. That was the Royal Highway. We have frequent mention of the port of Bharukacha, that is Bharuch in Gujarat. So that was probably the most important port of the Mauryas. Megasthenes speaks about agronomoi. So this officer called agronomoi was in charge of laying and maintenance of roads. So he was like the road constructor, road engineer who would build and maintain roads. The Megasthenes calls him as agronomoi, right? Rate of interest on money lent, 15% to 60% per annum. Rumendai inscription, the only Ashokan inscription which makes a precise reference to Mauryan taxation, which saw this. Ashoka visited Lumbini in the 21st year of his reign, 21st year of his reign, 21st regnal year, 21 years since he had come to power. So visits Lumbini, he reduces the tax payable by the people of Lumbini to 1/8. So this is the only edict which makes a precise reference to Mauryan taxation. Shrenis enjoyed good social standing. What is a Shreni? It's a guild. A merchant guild or a trade guild is called a Shreni. Trade guilds. We hear of trade guilds in the pre-Maurya period. So Shrenis enjoyed good social standing. So Shrenis or merchant guilds, that is group of merchants, an association of merchants generally dealing with the same commodity. That's called a guild. An association of merchants generally dealing with the same commodity. For example, you could have a guild of potters, a guild of weavers, etc. So they will make rules for themselves. So if they make rules for themselves, it is called Shreni Dharma. Shreni Dharma. And they'll also have a militia which will guard those goods being transported from one area to another area. That's called Shreni Bala. Shreni Bala. So the Shrenis made rules to govern their trade. Everybody was bound by those rules. That is called Shreni Dharma, right? The king did not interfere in the internal affairs of the Shreni, though he was a supreme authority over everybody, including over the guilds. But then he generally did not interfere on a regular basis unless there was a dispute amongst the guild members. Okay, so this is about Shrenis. Art and architecture will be discussed as part of art and culture, art and architecture of the Mauryas. Mauryas were the first to use stone. They began to use stone and they got influenced by the Persians. So the beginning of stone in architecture is from the Mauryan period onwards, particularly from the time of Ashoka onwards. So we'll talk about it. So decline of the Mauryan Empire. So we have various theories given as regards the decline. Let us talk about it on your screen. H.P. Shastri says it was a revolt of the Brahmins. He says it was a revolt of the Brahmins. Now, in other words, it was a Brahminical counter-revolution, he says. Brahminical counter-revolution. This theory of H.P. Shastri has been rejected. So what does he say? What did he say rather, H.P. Shastri? He said that the Brahmanas, the guardians of the Vedic religion, were very, very angry with the Mauryas because the first three Mauryas were patrons of heterodox sects. Chandragupta Maurya patronized Jainism. Bindusara patronized the Ajivika sect, and Ashoka patronized Buddhism. So the great Mauryas were not patronizing the Vedic religion, and therefore the Mauryas were very, very angry with them. The people were very, very angry with them. The Brahmanas were very angry with the Mauryas. And later, when Pushyamitra Sunga, who happened to be a Brahmana, he killed Brihadratha because the Brahmanas are very angry with the Mauryas. That's what he says. But then please understand, it is nothing like a Brahminical counter-revolution. Historians have rejected this theory because it was only the case of an ambitious general taking advantage of a weak ruler. Brihadratha was a weak king, and his commander-in-chief, Senapati, Pushyamitra Sunga, happened to be a Brahmana, and he was ambitious. So he took advantage of that weak king, killed him, and usurped the throne. It was not that the Brahmanas were angry with the Mauryas. It is just that Mauryas might have patronized the heterodox sects, but they were also tolerant towards other religions. Okay, so this is number one. Are you there with me? H.P. Shastri's theory has been rejected for that reason. Second theory is that of H.C. Rai Chaudhary. He says pacifist policies of Ashoka were responsible for the decline of the Mauryas. You see, the Mauryan Empire, Mauryan army remained unutilized for 29 years after Kalinga. After the Kalinga war, for 29 years, there was no war. So the Mauryan army lost its fighting capacity. It lost its fighting capacity, according to H.C. Rai Chaudhary. And therefore, that led to the decline of the Mauryas. Now, this theory again was rejected. Why? Of course, there was no war after Kalinga, but then it was not that the Mauryan army lost its fighting capacity. The army was used to maintain law and order over the huge and extensive Mauryan Empire and also guard the frontiers. So it was used to guard the frontiers and also maintain law and order within the huge extensive empire. So it did not lose its fighting capacity at all. So this theory was rejected. D.D. Kosambi, he says economic crisis was responsible for the decline of the Mauryas. You see, according to D.D. Kosambi, the percentage of gold in the later day coins of the Mauryas is drastically less. Very less percentage of gold is found in the later day Mauryan coins. And that, he says, shows that the economy was strained. It shows that the economy was strained. That's why we have less percentage of gold in the later day Mauryan coins. But again, this theory was rejected because many cities, many areas were rejuvenated and new areas were built, new towns and cities came into existence even during the later day Mauryan period. So therefore, this theory is rejected. The most acceptable theory is that of Romila Thapar, administrative defects. That is, Ramila Thapar says that uh, the Mauryan administration was defective in nature. All the power was in the hands of the king. So he was a supreme legislative, executive, judicial authority, and you require a very capable person to run a huge empire like that of the Mauryas. Unfortunately, after Ashoka, we had weak successors, and they were not capable men, and therefore the Mauryan empire collapsed like a pack of cards. So this theory of Pramila Thapar has been accepted by most of the scholars. Administrative defects. Are you there with me, all of you? Are you clear? Please raise your hand so that I can continue. Okay, Suman. Right. So let us look at something about Arthashastra. So I put a small note here on Arthashastra. It was discovered in 1905 by R. Shama Shastri. It is written by Kautilya. It is both in prose and poetry, partly in prose and poetry. It is written in the Sanskrit language. It has got 15 parts, adhikaranas, and 180 subparts. A total of 6,000 poems, verses are seen in that. So, what are the various topics it deals with? Kingship. So, it is training for the king, safety and security of the king, duties of the king. So, what he is supposed to do from morning till night before he sleeps, appointment of council of ministers, use of money, women, etc., to test the ministers. So, ministers should not succumb to all these things, temptations. So, all these things are mentioned in book one, which talks about kingship. Adhyaksha Prakara, secretaries of various departments, Dharmastya, civil law, then Kantaka Shodhana, criminal justice, salaries and scales of officers, different levels of pay to the officers, Saptanga's theory of state, foreign policy. That is, the king alone cannot run the administration, he requires help. So there are 7 limbs to a king, to a state. So what are the 7 limbs of a state? Swami, king, Mantri, Amatya, Bala and Danda, army and police. Durga is the fort. Kosha is the treasury. Janapada is the territory. Mitra is the ally. So these are the 7 limbs of a state. So Saptanga theory of state, he gives that. Foreign policy in different situation, crisis management like disaster management like famine, drought, etc. And different types of soldiers to be mobilized, Maula, Britakas, etc. Then wars and strategies to be followed, policies to be adopted in oligarchies. What is an oligarchy? Where you have a group of members running the tribe or the kingdom. That's called an oligarchy. So policy to be adopted in oligarchies. Then strategies to be adopted by a weak king to deal with while dealing with a strong king. End justifies the means. Like for example, even now, Kautilya's theory is relevant to us. For example, India and Pakistan have problems, right? And we have defeated Pakistan every time we went to war. Whenever there was a war between India and Pakistan, we have defeated Pakistan. Pakistan also knows that India is a much more stronger country in all respects, economically, militarily, etc. So what has Pakistan done? She has befriended China. So whenever there's any tension between India and Pakistan, China makes huge noises in favor of Pakistan. And to counter China, we befriended Russia, right? And also America. America was also supporting Pakistan during the Cold War days. So we befriended Russia. So this is what it is. Now, what should a weak king do to tackle a strong king? End justifies the means. So means doesn't matter. End is important. Ultimately, the national interest of a country matters. So that's what Kautilya talks about, like Machiavelli talks about in The Prince, dealing with conquered territories. Opani Sadaka, that is, talks of occult practices, use of sorcery, witchcraft. So magic, black magic, witchcraft, sorcery to stay in power or to snatch power. All these things are mentioned by Kautilya. Then various aspects of administration, 7 sources of income for a king, 7 items of expenditure of the king. All these are mentioned by Kautilya in his Arthashastra. So let us look at the questions from this chapter, Mauryan Empire. 1995, there was a question. The name by which Ashoka is generally referred to in the inscriptions is Chakravarti, Dharmadeva, Dharmakirti, Piyadasi. Piyadasi is the answer. What is Piyadasi? One who looks on auspiciousness. This was his official name. Piyadasi was his official name. Ashoka was his personal name. Then which one of the following scripts of ancient India was written from right to left? So Brahmi, Nandanagari, Sharda, Kharoshti. So right to left is Kharoshti, which is the other script which is written from right to left. Apart from Kharoshti, what is the other script written from right to left? Aramaic. Very good. Aramaic is also written from right to left. Brahmi is written from left to right. Left to right. Nandinagari is the script used in South India and Deccan between the 11th and the 18th centuries or so. Even the Vijayanagar kings had Nandinagari as their script. Sharda script was prevalent in Kashmir. So I've given the answer here. Sharda script was prevalent in Kashmir. Then, which one of the following edicts mention the personal name of Ashoka, 1998? Kalsi, Rumindai, Special Kalinga Edict, Musky. Musky is the answer. 1915, it was discovered. Minor rock edict number 1 at Musky in Karnataka, where Ashoka uses the word Ashoka. 1998 question: which one of the following ancient Indian records is the earliest royal order to preserve food grains to be utilized during the crisis in the country? It is the Sohagaura copperplate inscription. Sohagaura and Mahastan inscription talk about famine relief measures to be undertaken during the time of a crisis, like a drought or a famine. Not Rumindai, not Prayaga Prashasti, not Mehroli. Then the Ashokan major edicts, which tell us about the Sangam kingdom, include rock edicts 2 and 14, 2 and 13. I'm sorry, 2 and 13. 2 and 13 is the answer. 2 and 13. So that is the answer. 2 and 13. Then the ancient Indian play Mudra Rakshasa of Vishakadatta has its subject as what? So here, Rakshasa was a minister under Nanda, Dhanananda, and he was a very intelligent and capable minister, and you have this mind, this is a political drama basically. Mudra Rakshasa is a political drama, how Chandragupta Chanakya was able to win over Rakshasa to the side of Chandragupta Maurya and support the candidature of Chandragupta. So this is the court intrigues at the time of Chandragupta Maurya. This play, Mudra Rakshasa, deals with that. Court intrigues at the time of Chandragupta Maurya. 2014, the national motto of India, Satyameva Jayate, inscribed below the emblem of India, is taken from the Mundaka Upanishad. Is taken from the Mundaka Upanishad. You see, we have the Ashokan pillar. Yesterday I have shown you, isn't it? Ashokan pillar is there. This is the inverted lotus or the bell-shaped lotus. This is the Dharma Chakra of Ashoka. And there are 4 Dharma Chakras. What are the 4 animals? Elephant, lion, horse, and bull around the Dharma Chakra. And this is called what? Abacus. This is called abacus. This is called inverted lotus. Now, when it came to our national emblem, the 2 wild animals around the abacus were removed. So please understand, 2 wild animals around the abacus, that is, the elephant and the lion were deleted, and the horse and the bull were retained. Horse and the bull were retained, and instead of the lion and the elephant, the slogan Satyameva Jayate from the Mundaka Upanishads was added to our national emblem. So the Satyameva Jayate has been taken from the Mundaka Upanishad. Are you there with me? Did you understand what I just now told you? So around the abacus, we have 4 animals. 2 wild animals were removed, elephant and lion, and 2 domestic animals, horse and bull, were retained. And in place of the 2 wild animals, Satyameva Jayate from the Mundaka Upanishad was incorporated. Hello, please raise your hands. Do you understand? Can I move on? Okay. Then, who of the following had first deciphered the edicts of Emperor Ashoka 2016? What a simple question. The answer is James himself, as you all know. 1837, he deciphered the Ashokan Brahmi. In 2019 question, look here on your screen. In which of the following relief sculpture inscriptions is Ranyo Ashoka, King Ashoka, mentioned along with the stone portrait of Ashoka? It is Kanaganahalli. The answer is this. This was in the current affairs that year. And this picture I have put from the net. This is not in the original question paper of UPSC. This is for our convenience that I have put. You can see here Ashoka. Ashoka is shown in this inscription. This is Ashoka, and he's shown with his queens and attendants. So this has been found at Kannaganahalli in the Kalburgi district of Karnataka. Then 2020 question, who among the following rulers advised his subjects through this inscription? Whosoever praises his religious sect or blames other sects out of excessive devotion to his own sect, with the view of glorifying his own sect, he rather injures his own sect very severely. Obviously, it is Ashoka. That's the answer. Which of the following scripts were used in the Ashokan inscriptions? So, what are the scripts? 3 languages and 4 scripts. Brahmi, Kharoshti, Greek, Aramaic. So, Brahmi, Kharoshti, Greek, and Aramaic. These are the scripts used. D is the answer. At which of the following countries of the Indian subcontinent Ashokan edicts are not found? As of now, it has not been found in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Till now, we have not found edicts of Ashoka in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. We have found them in present-day Afghanistan, present-day Pakistan, and Nepal also. Then match the following. H.P. Shastri, Revolt of Brahmins, he said. H.C. Rai Chaudhary, The Pacifist Policies of Ashoka. D.D. Kosambi, Economic Crisis. And Pramila Thapar, Administrative Defects. The answer is this. Which of the following Ashokan edicts mentioned South Indian kingdoms? This is a UPSC question. The year is missing. Major Rocket Edict number 2 and Major Rocket Edict number 13. So 1 and 4 is the answer. 1 and 4 is the answer. Then match the following. Akara Adhyaksha. Akara means mines. Mines, Akara Adhyaksha. Sita Adhyaksha, Crown Lands, Agriculture. Kupya Adhyaksha, Forest. Pautava Adhyaksha, Weights and Measures. So that is the match. This is the end of this chapter. So when it comes to for Mauryan period, they'll mostly ask you art and architecture related question from the art and culture section. They might ask you about Ashoka's Dhamma, but I have my own doubts regarding that. So mostly it is prelims related question from Mauryan Empire. If they ask you mains question, they might ask you about art and architecture of the Mauryas, which we will discuss as part of art and culture. So it is 1:25 on my watch. So exactly 1:25. We'll meet at 2:25. Is it fine? 2:25. Yeah, Pana is the Mauryan currency. Yes. Mashaka, Padam. Yes. So 2:25 p.m. we are going to meet. Okay. So you carry on. We meet at 2:25 exactly. So eat your food, take a nap, take a fresh wash after that, and come. You'll be fresh. He has some chai, coffee after that, and then sit for the class for another 3 hours. 2:25 to 3 hours we go. Maybe 5 minutes break I'll give you in between, and then we'll take a 20 minutes break and half an hour break after that, and then go on till 8 o'clock. So long day to go. So eat your food, have some rest, and then come back.